All right. Welcome, everyone. I call this governing board meeting of the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District to order. The date is August 18th. The time is 9:04 a.m. Thank you all for joining us today. We have board members participating in person and via Zoom webinar. We will do our best to facilitate a smooth meeting with public participation via Zoom and webcast. Before we begin, here are some important guidelines and general instructions for the meeting. Please silence your other communication devices, such as your cell phone or desk phone. This will ensure we are not hearing any feedback that can interrupt the meeting. During the meeting, all public participants, except for board members and district staff, will be placed on mute by the host. Public members will not be able to mute or unmute manually. Only the board members and staff will be visible on Zoom. Audio for members of the public will be unmuted once they are recognized to make the public comment. After each agenda item, the chair will announce public comment. The clerk will recognize any public attendee who has indicated they wish to speak. We can go ahead and go for a roll call. See?
Sure. Mr. Bessinger?
Sorry, here.
Thank you. Mr. Chiesa?
Here.
Mr. Couch? Ms. Fugazi?
Present.
Ms. Lewis? Mr. Mendez?
I am here.
Dr. Pacheco Warner? Mr. Pereira?
Present.
Mr. Peterson? Mr. Prasiato?
Present.
Mr. Rickman? Sorry, Mr. Rickman, you're on mute.
Here.
Thank you. Dr. Sheriff?
Here in Fresno.
Ms. Shucklin? Mr. Wheeler?
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Great news. All right, we'll move on to item 3, approval of the consent calendar. Those are items 17 through 25 in your agenda. Would any board member like to pull or comment on any items? Seeing none. Is there any public comment? Okay,
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
I'm sorry, I do see a public comment on Zoom. And I just wanted to remind the public members that this is the consent calendar. I do not see any public comment. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
I'll second
So-
that.
We had a motion from member Pereira. And a second
And I will
by
second it.
Got it. All right, roll call vote. I guess we don't
Mr.
have to roll call.
Bessinger? Mr. Bessinger?
Yes.
Mr. Chiesa?
Yes.
Ms. Fugazi?
Yes.
Mr. Mendez?
Yes.
Dr. Pacheco Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Pereira?
Aye.
Mr. Prasiato?
Yes.
Mr. Rickman?
Yes.
Dr. Sheriff?
Yes.
Mr. Wheeler?
Yes. Had to find my mute.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 4, which is a public comment period. Opportunity for anyone in the public to speak on any item that's not on today's posted agenda. If you're participating by Zoom video conference, please press the raise hand button on the participants list so that you may be recognized to speak. If you are participating on Zoom audio conference, please press *9 so that you may be recognized to speak. Also *6 to mute and unmute yourself. *9 so you may be recognized, *6 to mute and unmute yourself. Do we have any members of the inside or at Fresno, the location, that would like to speak?
Yes, we do have a public comment.
President Nisei Farmers League. I would like to acknowledge on July 20th through the 22nd, the agriculture industry invited the chairwoman, Randolph, down with her executive staff to tour agricultural facilities. With the collaboration and the coordination with this district, turned out to be one of the best tours we've ever had. We toured a processing facility in Madera with electric goats, trucks, and talked about the issues we have there with the batteries on the trucks. Proceeded to go to a dairy and showed all the activities. As a matter of fact, we even had to charge an electric car with cow fuel because the car battery was dead when it got there finally. But so thank God for the cows. They came through. After that evening, we had a dinner with the chairwoman and all the staff with the ag leaders and various folks. Great meeting, great dinner. The next day, Thursday, we had a huge tour, went out to the west side and visited a grinding, chipping outfit to where we saw vineyards being ground by various pieces of equipment and the new type of technology to remove the steel out of the vines. So that was a great tour. From there, we went, had lunch in Kettleman, and then came back and went to a truck meeting with a farmer. And I want to thank Buddy Mendes very, very much for being a part of that entire program that day. And we thank you for attending as well as others. That evening, we came back at 4:30 at the Farm Bureau, had a small farmer meeting, excellent meeting. We had over 43 different farmers, small farmers that are being underserved from all nationalities of different cultures. It was a great meeting for small farmers, talked about the needs and thanked the district for what they have been doing. The next day was to highlight the crushing. Some of you have been involved in the crushing of tractors, ATVs. Chairwoman Randolph crushed the tractor, in which the tractor she crushed was the first African-American woman farmer who received the used tractor program that came out this year that we created with the district. So thank you very much for all the efforts of the Air District and the staff. Great tour. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry for the length of that.
Thank you very much for those comments. Anyone else in Fresno?
I do not see, there's no more public comment here in the Fresno office.
Bakersfield?
We have no members of the public in Bakersfield.
Modesto?
No public comment in Modesto office.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll go online.
And I do have public comment online. Go ahead, Connie Young.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi. So I'm Connie Young, Fresno resident, retired registered nurse and volunteer with Citizens Climate Lobby, also known as CCL. You'll be glad to know that today and for some time to come, I won't ask you to urge Congress to take action on climate change. That's finally happened with the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act. Although CCL would have preferred bipartisan legislation and the inclusion of a price on carbon emissions, nevertheless, this is a giant step in the right direction. I'm grateful that the district staff is so skillful at identifying and securing funding opportunities, because many of the bill's provisions could benefit our region. It contains clean energy tax credits and other investments in solar, wind, geothermal energy, and batteries. It provides loans and tax credits for clean vehicle and technology manufacturing facilities. It invests in EVs and will hasten the transition to clean trucks and buses. It will also promote household electrification and clean energy upgrades for consumers. Among its forest management provisions, it allocates funds for hazardous fuel reduction projects on National Forest System land. And the Methane Emissions Reduction Program will support efforts to reduce methane emissions and help communities reduce the health effects of pollution. When combined with the climate provisions in the bipartisan infrastructure package and the CHIPS Act, Congress is finally addressing the serious threat posed by climate change. Locally, I'd like you to know about the annual Air Pollution and Climate Change Symposium that will be held on Saturday, September 17th at UCSF Fresno. It will focus on the challenges of air pollution in California and possible solutions. Topics will include the state of the air in the Central Valley, the impact of air pollution on human health, health impacts of climate change, and wildfire ecosystem interactions and climate change. That's Saturday, September 17th at UCSF. For more information, talk with Dr. Sheriffs or Google Air Pollution Symposium Fresno. Thank you.
Next, we have Veronica Aguirre.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Hi, good morning, Chair and Directors. My name is Veronica Aguirre. I am a citizen of the community of Avenel, and I'm here today to bring to your attention a growing concern that has been with our community for the past few years, pre-COVID, and it is in regards to the Avenel landfill and the terrible odors that it gives out and makes it very uncomfortable for people that live especially close to the landfill. We're talking households that live hundreds of feet from this, from the Avenel landfill. There's homes, there's multifamily housing, there's healthcare facilities, and even schools that are very close and daily have to deal with the terrible odors. We do use the complaint process, but I hate to say this, it is a broken system. It is not made for small communities like ours. It is asking that for them to be able to give a violation to a polluter that is causing odor nuisance. 5 people within a 24-hour period of time has to give call in. That is impossible in a community so small as ours. I mean, it is possible we could get it, but thanks to geography, there's a lot of times where inspectors are unable to come and, within 24 hours possibly. And when they get here, the odor no longer exists. So therefore, the community continues to have to deal with these odors. I would like to ask that this is looked over and possibly revisited, and so that also it helps small communities like ours, Kettleman City, people that live very far away from where you guys dispatch your investigators or inspectors. Also, the need for a permanent air monitor system that can also document different types of odor, what the odors are bringing, tons of methane coming from all the vehicles. I know my time is about up, but I just wanted to bring this to your attention and hope that you guys will look this over, because the community of Avenel does need assistance. Community of Kettleman City, many of these small communities that are very far away, we're having to deal with a lot of different items, and there's no reason why we have to continue to live with this public nuisance of odor. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Next, we have Janet Dietz-Gamay.
Good morning, board members and board chairman. This is Janet Dietz-Gamay. I am a Fresno City resident, and as a result of living here, I have asthma. I'd like to address climate change. I guess it's pretty apparent to everyone from this summer's extreme nationwide weather, flooding, drought, fires, things that have happened never before are happening this year. climate change. We knew about this for years. Modeling suggested that it wouldn't happen this fast, but it is. It's happening very fast. This year has absolutely demonstrated climate change. Communal interest, communal effort, absolute concentration is needed to reduce greenhouse gases. We are in a very serious phase of climate change now. Millions of dollars are being lost to climate change. It'd be nice to focus those millions of dollars onto resolving the cause of climate change. People in the agricultural industry have been aware of this for quite some time. Addressing water, to the changes in water availability, in choice of growing the products that can deal with the reduced water. Farming methods have to change. This is serious, and what we have seen this summer is alarming. This needs to have absolute focus. We must work together. This is our problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet.
And I do not see any more public comment.
Mr. Chair, just if I could jump in real quick, just wanted to let the public commenter earlier, Ms. Aguirre, just want to let the board know that it definitely is something that's an ongoing issue that our staff are continuing to follow up with the community to respond to complaints, address concerns. So we'll certainly be circling back with Veronica and others in the community to continue discussions around those concerns. I just want to make sure the board is aware that there is an ongoing effort there with the staff who do go out there on a very frequent basis in response to those concerns, and are working also with state and local, state and federal partners as well. Landfills are heavily regulated by the county and by a number of other entities, and certainly trying to continue enhancing the response to the concerns that have been coming up. Just wanted to provide a quick response, and definitely let Ms. Aguirre know that we'll be following up with her on that issue.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, so we're going to move on to item 5, to appoint a vice chair. And I guess the lead-in, Samir, if you want to give the lead-in.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just wanted to give a quick context to the item. With the departure of our prior chair, Mr. Monty Reyes, he's no longer on council and is no longer on the district governing board. Under the board officer policies, the vice chair, which previously was Supervisor Chiesa, automatically becomes the chair under the board policies for officer selection for the remainder of the year. And so with Supervisor Chiesa now assuming and taking over the chairmanship role, there is a vacancy for vice chair. It would be for the remainder of this year. To remind the board, every year there's a process by which the board officer policy puts into place through election, nomination process, and a subcommittee process, both the chair and the vice chair every single year at the beginning of the year. So this would be for the remainder of the year in the event that the chair is unavailable for whatever reason for any of the 4 board meetings, I believe, that are left here in the year. So it hopefully is not something that is needed much, if at all, in terms of having to fill the chair role as vice chair in the event that the chair is gone. But to make sure that we have both roles filled, that would be the purpose of this item. And I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair, in terms of any action from the board on filling this vacant vice chair slot.
Okay, so this would just be through the end of the year. We'll go through the normal nominating process. I know I was expecting a year or 2 of sitting in the vice chair while learning this position, and it changes. Things always change quickly. I think, again, just through my thought process, because if I don't make a meeting, I think it would be good to have one of the former chairs potentially step in through the end of the year, and then we can go through the normal process. It would give me some more time. And I was thinking Buddy Mendez would be, he's there in Fresno, he attends the meetings regularly. I think he could aptly fill in without any issue. So that's what I was thinking. So I'll look for board comments. I see Supervisor Pereira.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Yeah, I mean, Buddy's been our chair before, and I think it'd be a good fill-in. So I'd like to nominate Buddy Mendez to be our new vice chair.
And
Second.
I see that
I'm here.
Buddy wants to talk, but I'm not going to recognize him yet because I'm afraid he's going to decline. So anyone else want to speak before Buddy? I'm just kidding. Buddy, Supervisor Mendez.
Yeah, I would accept it. And then, if somebody wants to, when we organize in January, we can bring somebody on that can be a potential eventual chair, but in the meantime, I'm willing to do this. So I won't, I'll pull the F troop deal and forget I heard anything. When everybody stepped back, I'm still standing here. So
I appreciate, and I'm sorry I didn't talk to you about that, but I just feel if I'm going to miss a meeting, someone that can step in without any issues. So I appreciate you being willing to serve through the rest of the year. Any other comments, or we have a motion on the floor. I don't see any others, so I'll entertain.
seconded it.
Second?
I did. Tom Wheeler did.
Okay. So a motion and a second, and I guess we're going to do a roll call vote. Oh,
Yes.
public comment. I guess I should go to public comment. I'm sorry.
Yes,
Is there any
thank you.
public comment?
I don't see any public comment here in the Fresno office, nor on Zoom.
Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Modesto?
No public comment in Modesto.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Bessinger,
Yes.
Mr. Chiesa,
Yes.
Ms. Fugazi,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Mendez,
Yes.
Dr. Pacheco Warner,
Yes.
Mr. Pereira,
Aye.
Mr. Preciado,
Yes.
Mr. Rickman,
Yes.
Dr. Sheriff,
Yes.
Mr. Wheeler,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you very much again, Supervisor Mendez. Thank you for offering up your time. We'll move on to item 6, report on district citizens advisory committee activities.
Mr. Chairman, and congratulations to your chairship, and Buddy to the vice chair. Again, you gentlemen and the board does a great job all around. So again, congratulations. Before the Citizens Advisory, in your board packet is the summary of the activities. A lot of discussion around 617 in the various SERPs that have the Lamont area is the last one that they're kind of pulling together and having the report of the funding and et cetera. So that's moving forward. The Shafter, the Fresno, the Stockton, those are coming along very well and moving in a direction. And what I understand, there is professionalism being conducted at these various SERPs where sometimes that has not been the case. So again, I'm glad to see that. I also want to thank Chairman Vito and all the supervisors and the city folks for helping the CAC get its members on board, the 3 areas of ag and business, the cities, and the environmental, of getting a full membership so we could hold our meetings just like you as a board. We're part of the board. And so I want to thank the supervisors for helping to move those nominations forward to the district so we can have those folks start attending. And again, I want to thank the board for all the work on that, as well as the staff at the Air District. So Samir, thank you very, very much, and your team. Any questions, Mr. Chairman? If not, I will sit down and not say a word. Thank you.
Again, appreciate your time and effort and all you do. Okay, we'll move on to item 7, if there's no other comments. I see none. Item 7 is star recognition, service, teamwork, attitude, and respect.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm glad to be here. Shanika Dixon, Director of Personnel. As you're aware, recognition of employees' contributions is an essential component to the district's star work culture. Today, we are going to be formally recognizing those employees who have reached a service milestone during the second quarter of 2022. So today we have district staff that are joining us both virtually as well as in person in all regions. So if you are present, I'd ask that you stand and please remain standing until all names have been read. We thank you so much for your contributions, your commitment to your service here at the district over the years, and we appreciate you. So we'll start off in Fresno, and we'll start off with 5 years of service. We have Michael Hare, Air Quality Instrument Specialist. Seth Lane, Program Manager. 10 years of service, Anna Stone, Air Quality Education Representative. For 15 years of service, Janet Good, Air Quality Inspector. And 20 years of service, Charlene Cano, Air Quality Specialist. Now moving to the south in Bakersfield. 15 years of service, Tina Frederick, Air Quality Inspector. And in Modesto, celebrating 15 years of service, James Harrider, Supervising Air Quality Engineer. And as you know, this year, the district celebrates 30 years as a public health agency improving the health and quality of life for Valley residents. And we have one employee who has contributed to that mission over the last 30 years. Celebrating 30 years of service at the district, Fred Cruz, Air Quality Engineer. Congratulations, Fred, and congratulations to all. We thank you all for your contributions and your service to the district. Thank you.
And this speaks volumes to not only the Air District being a good employer, but we're only good at doing our job because of the employees. So we appreciate all of that. Congratulations for your years, and don't think about leaving too soon. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you much. Going to move on to item 8, receive and file the California Department of Finance Fiscal Compliance Audit.
Perfect. Good morning, Chair and members of the board. My name is Ryan Buchanan. I'm the controller for the district, and today is my pleasure to share with you and Valley stakeholders the outstanding report the district received from an audit that was conducted by the California Department of Finance. The district has always welcomed and supported audits of our programs, as we believe they serve to enhance public accountability and transparency while promoting best practices and good government. This is especially critical in an agency like the district that is entrusted with hundreds of millions of dollars in public funds each year. At the direction of the board, the district strives to serve as a role model for other public agencies through our efforts and investment aimed at achieving outstanding customer service, accountability to the public, effective and efficient use of public funds, open and transparent public processes, and robust fiscal controls. Annually, the district is audited by an independent professional certified public accounting firms in accordance with generally accepted accounting standards and the standards applicable to financial audits contained in the governmental auditing standards. In recognition of your board's commitment to meeting the highest principles of government financial reporting, transparency to the public, and excellence in exercising fiduciary responsibility, the district has been rewarded with the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for the last 8 years. And in October 2021, the California Department of Finance notified the district that they would be conducting a fiscal compliance audit of the district's implementation of CARB's air pollution reduction incentive programs. The audit covered the district's implementation of 8 air pollution reduction incentive programs for a period of 10 years from 2011 to 2021. The purpose of this audit was to determine whether the incentive program's revenues, expenditures, and balances were in compliance with applicable grant agreements, guidelines, and statutes. The audit also included risk assessment of the district's key internal controls, such as the review and approval process for expenditure and revenue reconciliation, interest revenue calculation and allocation, and reimbursement request preparation, and processes for fund liquidation and reporting. On July 20th, 2022, the Department of Finance informed the district that the fiscal compliance audit had been completed, and the audit was determined to be a clean audit with no deficiencies in internal controls. The results of this audit continue to demonstrate the district's standing in good stewards of public funds, specifically in air pollution reduction incentive programs that support improving the health and quality of life for all Valley residents. The district appreciates the results of this audit, as it once again affirms the district's commitment to robust financial controls, accountability, and transparency in the use of public funds.
Mr. Chair, just wanted to add one sort of closing comment on this. There's one number that was in one of the slides there that Ryan didn't mention, but I think you may have seen kind of a mind-boggling number. The audit covered about $500 million worth of state grant funding that we've handled here at the Air District, which is a really huge number. And it's really a testament, the findings are, to the leadership of the board. This has always been a big priority for the board to make sure that we have good systems in place. Also a testament to the great staff and the finance team who work diligently with our grants team to make sure that we're operating these programs in conformance with the guidelines, always meeting our deadlines, always meeting the performance expectations. I just wanted to give a little recognition to the finance team, Ryan, his leadership there, as well as all the great staff that we have there who work diligently on these issues day in, day out. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to the board.
Thank you very much. Any comments from the board members? Dr. Sheriff.
Boy, I certainly would like to second Samir's comments, and thanks to the staff and the finance team. It just bespeaks an attention to detail at all levels of the staff that's so critical that we could come through 10-year audit, $500 million, and that fantastic work. And we need that. We need the transparency. We need the public trust, and this is so critical to that. So thank you all. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Yep. Great comments, Dr. Sheriff. Anyone else? Any public comment?
I do have a public comment here in the Fresno office.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Chris McLaughlin. I'm with the California Cotton Ginners and Growers Association, as well as the Western Agricultural Processors Association. Again, I think I'm going to reiterate a lot of what's been said already, but I wanted to take the opportunity to commend the district on the results of another successful audit process. I'd like to highlight 2 words in the presentation of being effective and efficient. This further highlights the effectiveness and professionalism of the district in working with the different departments on these different incentive programs. We appreciate the opportunity to work with the district on these various projects, especially with Todd and Aaron. I know they have to take a lot of calls from Manuel, myself, and Roger on all the different ideas that we come up with different project categories or different ideas that we might have for some of these projects. But we'd like to further appreciate that. We want to commend the Grants and Incentives Department on their productiveness in handling all of these different project categories and all the different ideas that we have. So thank you. Good job.
Your comments, Chris?
I am back. I apologize for not coming back, but Manual Community Farmers, I want to first commend the district. I'll make a side comment. That's why there's no need for no 2550 at all from Mr. or Dr. Joaquin Arambula's piece of terrible legislation that he has proposed. But I want to commend Todd, I want to commend Aaron, and the entire team, Ryan, for all the work. For the 30 years that we started doing these first incentives, And you've had a lot of audits. Before you even came on board, you were just a little kid in high school, you know? But to have those two gentlemen and your entire team over the years have worked so hard to understand what our needs are in agriculture as well as non-agriculture, even from the fireplace program, the tune-up, the famous Jamie Holt program. You've done it. And Samir and the board needs to be commended. Every audit that's come to this district that people in Sacramento have thrown at this board, and you're right, Dr. Sheriff, they've exceeded and have done a superb job. And again, I want to commend and thank Samir for you helping all of our farmers with the various programs, and especially even with the Ag Burn, the latest, biggest one. The huge one, the farmer program, tremendous hardworking program, tractor trade up, and the used program, all of that. So, Mr. Chairman, I thank you, the board, and the entire staff at the San Joaquin Valley, and that's why there's no need for no crummy piece of legislation called 2550. Thank you.
Thanks, Manuel, for your comments. Sneaking in those little barbs. So, anyone else for public comment?
I do not see any more public comment in the Fresno office nor on Zoom.
Okay, and there's no more comments from our board. I go right back to the star recognition, and the reason this organization runs is through the leadership of our employees, and I heard it from Chris and Manuel. We're very lucky to have long-term employees who understand, and we've got a great bench coming up. So again, thank you very much for the presenting a clean audit. Again, this is just amazing, but I'm not surprised from everything I've seen. So no more comments. I think we have to receive and file, correct? Motion.
I'll move to receive and file the audit report.
All right, we have a motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Roll call vote.
Okay, thank you. And then through the chair, Mr. Couch is here. Mr. Bessinger,
Yes.
Mr. Chiesa,
Yes.
Mr. Couch,
Yes.
Ms. Fugazi,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Mendez,
Yes.
Dr. Pacheco-Warner,
Yes.
Mr. Pereira,
Aye.
Mr. Rickman,
Yes.
Mr. Preciado,
Aye.
Dr. Sheriff,
Yes.
Mr. Wheeler,
Yes.
motion passes.
Great, thank you very much. Move on to item 9, approve project plans for implementation of incentive programs within the AB 617 communities of Shafter and Stockton.
Mr. Chair, board members, I'd like to introduce Todd DeYoung, our incentive grant programs director, who you've heard his name a number of times and runs basically the best grant program anywhere in the universe to actually lay out another exciting set of programs that we're working on here in our 617 community. So with that, Mr. DeYoung.
Appreciate that, Samir. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Again, Todd DeYoung, Director of Grants and Incentives here at the Air District. I am here this morning seeking your board's approval to accept and appropriate $12.9 million in funding. Do we have the presentation switched? We were
Mr. Chair,
going to do
just
the
a slight
617.
snafu here. There's 2 items kind of back to back that are grant related, but I think we may have
we were going to do 617.
gotten a little bit out of turn here. So yeah,
Okay.
we'll get back on the agenda order here by bringing up the item number 9 presentation.
I was going to roll with it, but
I was ready to go.
Okay. So I am here this morning to do both of those things. But first, we'd like to seek your board's approval for several project plans for the implementation of incentive programs within the AB 617 communities of Shafter and Stockton. And so just by way of a very brief background, the communities of Shafter and Stockton are two of the 4 Valley communities that have been prioritized by the district and selected by CARB as communities in the Valley to receive clean air resources available under AB 617. Your board has adopted SERPs that include dedicated AB 617 funding for a variety of projects and incentive measures aimed at reducing air pollution and exposure to the residents of those communities. It's important to note that these measures are guided by the advice and knowledge of the local community members through their input and involvement in numerous steering committee meetings that are taking place in each of these communities. For context, the Shafter SERP, among other measures, includes a variety of projects, including road, sidewalk, and bike lane improvements, as well as transit vehicle replacement measures. And the Stockton SERP, among other measures, includes a car share program measure, which I'm going to discuss in later slides. So the funding to support the implementation of the various SERP measures is provided by the Community Air Protection Program. These are funds, state funds provided through the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Funds. These dedicated funds are subject to what are called the Community Air Protection or CAP guidelines. These guidelines contain pre-approved project types that generally follow the Carl Moyer program. These are generally mobile source type projects, truck replacement program, heavy duty equipment replacement program, light duty equipment replacement program, those sorts of measures that the district operates on a routine basis. However, measures that are not pre-approved in the CAP guidelines must receive CARB approval prior to being implemented by the district. The measures that we're proposing today are in that bucket. These are not pre-approved in the CAP guidelines. These don't exist in the CAP guidelines. So they do require both CARB approval and district approval. Part of the process is submitting project plans to CARB for the reference measures. And staff has been working closely with CARB over the last several months on submitting those project plans and getting those plans approved. Because these programs are outside of what the district normally does in terms of our incentive programs, these are not existing programs in our incentive program portfolio. They then require governing board approval to implement prior to beginning these measures. So the first of the 3 measures for your board's consideration today is a car share program in Stockton. The amount approved in the Stockton SERP for this measure is up to $1 million in funding. And just for some context, obviously reducing mobile source emissions that make up a majority of the ozone and PM 2.5 forming NOx and PM is a critical component of the district's overall strategy to attain the health-based standards. Unfortunately, mobile sources are primarily under state and federal jurisdiction. So we rely heavily on voluntary incentive programs to transition older, higher emitting vehicles and equipment to cleaner technology, as well as supporting the development of alternative transportation strategies. With limited public transportation options in many communities throughout the Valley, driving is more prevalent than in other areas of the state. Just for some context, emissions from light duty vehicles in Stockton make up 114 tons of NOx, 138 tons of VOCs, and 12.7 tons per year of PM 2.5 within that community. So it's a significant source of pollution. So this particular program, during the process of developing the SERP and the particular measures, the Stockton Community Steering Committee identified a partnership opportunity to leverage an existing effort to bring a car share program to the community. In 2019, the San Joaquin County Housing Authority received a $2.3 million federal HUD, what's called a Jobs Plus grant. This is a planning grant that was focused on helping residents get and keep jobs in the community. As part of the grant, numerous community meetings were held to identify and address the biggest barriers to getting and keeping jobs. Through this process, transportation was identified as one of the most significant barriers for residents to get and keep jobs within the community. Based on multiple surveys car sharing and van pooling really rose to the top and were chosen as the best mobility options to serve residents and address these barriers. Unfortunately, the grant didn't include sufficient funding to actually implement the car share program. Through this process, we've identified a program that costs $1.6 million for this new car share program within the community. $544,000 was obtained and made available through the state CEC-run Cal EVIP program. This funding is going towards the installation of electric vehicle charging infrastructure that will be part of the program. But this leaves a $1 million shortfall for the remaining program implementation. So this measure proposes to leverage the funding and the resources that have already been committed to this project through this Jobs Plus grant to fully implement the car sharing program within the Stockton community. The $1 million for this measure would be allocated for vehicle acquisition, maintenance and insurance, the charger installation. Residents of the 617 community would be provided with discount codes that would reduce the dollar per hour charge for these vehicles. I believe it's down from $11 per hour to $5 per hour for community residents. Funding for marketing and outreach and then general program administration would also be included in that $1 million. So prior to executing an agreement, the project proponent would be required to submit to the district a detailed project plan outlining the specific milestones and activities, eligible costs and tools developed for the program, and then the expected outcomes and benefits to the community. I will note that a lot of this information is already available and a lot of this work has already been done through this Jobs Plus grant. So we would be able to move quickly if approved today to implement this car share program within the Stockton community. The second measure for your board's consideration this morning is a road, sidewalk, and bike lane improvement program in the city of Shafter. The funding amount in the approved SERP or Community Emission Reduction Program within Shafter is $3.775 million. And just for some context, the city of Shafter and the surrounding 7-mile radius that's included in the AB 617 community contains over 659 miles of roads, including 109 miles of major roads and 550 miles of minor roads. Sources of emissions from roads include deposits of vehicle exhaust and industrial exhaust, particles from tire and brake wear, dust from paved roads and potholes, and then dust from construction and other earth-moving activities. It's noted that approximately 18% of all PM 2.5 emissions in the Shafter community are from road dust. And as such, the community members on the steering committee really desired to identify these opportunities to reduce that dust from these paved and unpaved roads. They were specifically interested in improvements in road paving and infrastructure within the communities within that 7-mile radius. So with that, the Community Steering Committee and Shafter worked closely with the district, the city of Shafter and Kern County to identify and prioritize 2 specific road paving and sidewalk improvement projects. These projects will significantly reduce emissions of windblown dust and activity-related fugitive dust, and also reduce exposure to residents. These projects will also facilitate safe alternate modes of transportation because they include the construction of dedicated bicycle lanes as well as new sidewalks. The overall benefits for these projects are calculated using established state guidelines through the CMAQ program. And so the first of those 2 projects is along State Route 43. This project will construct new paved shoulder and bicycle lane, curb and gutter and sidewalk along the west side of State Route 43 between Mayor Lane and West Tulare Avenue. This particular project will cost $1 million, with the lead agency being the city of Shafter. And the second project is a paving project within the Mexican Colony area, just south of Shafter. This project will construct sidewalks, curbs, and gutters along Burbank Street, Rodriguez Street, Martinez Street, Paseo de Pico Street, and Manuel Avenue. This is just under a mile in total paving. The total cost for this project is about $1.5 million, and the lead agency on this project will be Kern County. So to identify and select these projects, the steering committee worked closely with the district and the city of Shafter and Kern County. These projects were identified and prioritized for the potential to do multiple things. Number one, reduce emissions and exposure to the residents of Shafter, impact on expanding options for safe and alternate modes of transportation with those bike lane installation and sidewalks and curbs and gutters. And as important is their ability to complete these projects within the timeframes required by the SERPs. So if approved today, the district will move quickly to enter into funding agreements with both the city and Kern County for the work specified in their individual proposals. And while we're not requiring match funding, we are going to continue to look for additional sources of funding, and to the extent possible, we will identify leveraging opportunities that will enhance the program benefits and then extend the impact of the available funding. It is important to note that these two projects total $2.5 million out of the $3.775 million that's available for this measure in the SERP. So we'll continue to work with the city and the county and other entities, including the steering committee, to identify additional projects. If and when we do find additional projects, we'll bring those to your board at the appropriate time for your consideration. So the third measure for your consideration this morning is a transit vehicle replacement program within the city of Shafter. The funding that was identified in the approved SERP for this measure is up to $400,000. And again, just for some context, mobile sources obviously make up a majority of the emissions in the Shafter community. And the CSC members worked hard to prioritize reducing emissions from those mobile sources. The goal of this program is to replace two higher polluting dial-a-ride transit vehicles with new electric or plug-in hybrid vehicles. The dial-a-ride service area includes the city of Shafter, as well as the Mexican Colony area, Smith Corner, and all the way out to the local Shafter Minterfield Airport. These new vehicles would enable residents to continue using these critical services while also reducing emissions and exposure to these harmful pollutants at the same time. So the $400,000 that was included for this measure in the SERP would cover up to 100% of the cost for replacing two of these higher polluting transit vehicles, again with electric or plug-in hybrid vehicles. The city is currently researching their options for replacing these vehicles, and they've identified plug-in hybrid as a potential solution for replacement. Should this option ultimately be chosen, the replacement vehicles would cost significantly less than the $400,000 that's available in this measure, and then that would be available for additional projects or other measures within the city of Shafter. So in terms of next step, this item, if approved today, would authorize the district to work to immediately launch these SERP measures within these communities immediately upon approval of these project plans by CARB. We expect these measures to be fully approved by CARB within the coming weeks. So your approval today would allow us to immediately begin implementation of these critical measures in these communities. We're going to work closely then as a next step with each community steering committee member to begin the targeted outreach for these programs to the communities as necessary for each one of the measures. So this slide just summarizes the recommendations for you today. It's in your packet. This actually concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Todd. One question on the car sharing program. We're underwriting a portion of the cost for local residents. I think I heard you say that from $11 to $5. How long are we
Correct.
able to subsidize that cost?
It's out to 3 years, a maximum of 3 years. Yeah.
Okay. And then we would take a look and see how beneficial it is and potentially continue funding. All right.
That's correct. The program would include reporting and an analysis of the effectiveness of the program.
Great, thank you. Member Fugazi.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad that you brought up the project in Stockton. And just to let you know, in late March, we had a community event. We had a Rise and Ride event, and the community really showed up And they are so excited about this opportunity. This is in the Housing Authority, well, 2 projects within the Housing Authority in the city of Stockton. And many of these households only have 1 vehicle, and maybe one of the adults takes that to work. And so they are left without any vehicle whatsoever. And so this really is a program that residents are excited about and will utilize. So it's money well spent, and I'm looking forward to its full implementation and being able to bring data back to the board and be able to show the positive impact it has brought. So I'm in full support of this and the other measures.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. Any other board comments? I see none. Let's go out to the public.
I do have a public comment here in the Fresno office.
Buenos dias, Chair and board members. My name is Esperanza Bielma, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Environmental Justice Coalition for Water, EJCW. I'm also part of the AB 617 Stockton Steering Committee. I'm here this morning to offer my full support for the Stockton SERP Incentive Program for the Car Share Program. We have firsthand knowledge of the benefits of a ride-share program, since we've been afforded the opportunity and have been granted 2 electric vehicles by Valley Can, EV Golf, and 1 for Cafe Coop. EJCW, as part of our Get Out the Vaccine campaign with the governor's office and UCLA, have utilized our EVs for our canvassers in an internal rideshare program. We canvassed 6 zip codes in the most disadvantaged communities in San Joaquin County. Jointly with our community organizations, we have gone door-to-door canvassing, crowd canvassing, and events with a total of 15,000 hours in phase 1 and 12,000 hours in phase 2. Currently, our partners are continuing to utilize the vehicles in the same manner. As a result, we have reduced the use of individual gas vehicles in our EJ communities. In addition, our drivers now rave about the benefits of the EVs to the point of upgrading to an EV for themselves through the trade-in program through Valley Can. In addition to the experience of EJCW serving EJ communities and having this program, I myself was raised in the AB 617 area, and I'm fully committed to continuing to advocate for the betterment of our community with improved air quality amongst our other EJ and economic issues. The rideshare program will also greatly benefit the community members with an opportunity to green career pathways in the way of certified EV technicians and charging station technicians. The rideshare program will be able to work with the EV technician program at San Joaquin Delta College. Therefore, EJCW's firsthand knowledge of our internal rideshare program has amplified EJCW's support for the AB 617 car share program. The program is a win-win for those involved, especially our residents. Thank you for your support.
Thank you for your comments. Esperanza?
Hello, my name is Myra Vivanco, and I serve as the office manager for Cafe Coop and oversee our internal rideshare program with our electric vehicles. We have firsthand knowledge of the benefits of a rideshare program since we have been granted electric Volkswagen Golf and utilize them in our everyday business. I am here this morning to offer my full support for the Stockton Incentive Program for the car share program. I believe this program would greatly benefit the San Joaquin community, especially the disadvantaged community who may not have access to electric vehicles and have limited vehicle access. This would have a huge impact on how residents go about their everyday lives and have an immense positive impact on our planet as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
I do not see any more public comment here in the Fresno office.
Okay. Bakersfield?
We do not have any public comment in Bakersfield.
We do have a comment here in Modesto.
Good morning.
I'm Sandy Pavin, and I work with the Housing Authority of the County of San Joaquin. Todd, thank you. That was an amazing description. So you cut out most of what I was going to say. But I agree with everyone else that what it does is it provides an opportunity. Not only is the Housing Authority looking towards building much more housing, obviously, because we've got an affordable housing issue, but this provides an opportunity for self-sufficiency. And when we went through the communities, it's a huge barrier. And between the EV car share and between the van pool, it will give people the opportunity to become self-sufficient. And that for us is crucially important. And I think that the win-win that everyone has talked about, which is reducing emissions and the ability for people to become self-sufficient, is something that our community in Stockton will benefit from. Thank you.
Thank you for your kind comments and all you do for the community. Okay, now we're going to go online.
I do have a public comment. Alexia Koloski.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you, Chair and members of the board. My name is Alexa Koloski. I'm a supervising planner with the Kern County Public Works Department. I am also a member of the Chapter AB 617 Community Steering Committee. I am speaking in support of all of the items discussed in this agenda item, but especially with regard to the Mexican Colony Sidewalk project for Chapter. The Chapter community has been requesting these sidewalk improvements for the past several years, especially for Mexican Colony. And this proposed project would provide a better quality of life for our unincorporated Chapter residents, and it would provide them with walking paths to community resources. This would reduce the dust and increase active transportation opportunities in the area. And so I'm just speaking out in full support, and we look forward to working with Chapter AB 617 and the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District to deliver this valuable project.
Thank you, Alexa, for your comments.
Next, I have Gustavo Aguirre.
Hello, good morning, everyone. This is Gustavo Aguirre Jr., Kern County Director for Central California Environmental Justice Network, and a steering committee member for both the Arvin and Lamont AB 617 and also the Shafter AB 617. And yeah, thank you so much, Todd and staff, for going over this presentation and calling out the needs, right? As I hope you're all aware, we've invested, nearly $8 million into Shafter through the AB 617 program and have been quite successful in reaching out to like farmers of all sizes, trading out low dust harvesters. And we've seen, at least in the preliminary data, that it is causing an effect, right? The emissions are being reduced. And so these are emissions from PM 2.5, from dust, et cetera. And yeah, I'm calling in to obviously voice the support of all the measures here today. Particularly La Colonia Mexicana, the paving and Shafter. As we know, it's one of the community priorities has been to pave roads. And obviously AB 617 is a program that the direct nexus has to be the reduction of emissions, right? And so we working with the county, Yolanda and her team, doing amazing work. We've been able to see the data that shows a representation of unpaved roads versus paved roads, right? And particularly in rural communities that are surrounded by industrial practices, having paved roads increases their walkability, their mobility, but also it reduces the PM 2.5 emissions, fugitive emissions overall. And so very much are calling to support this. I know residents have been asking for this for a very long time now, even beyond AB 617. So the fact that we're able to use these investments to not only improve the community, but to complete the nexus between reducing emissions from fugitive dust, from PM10, 2.5, I think, this program has been accomplished to a certain extent. So thank you so much, and look for you guys' approval today.
Thank you very much, Gustavo.
Next, I have Janet Dietz-Kamay.
Thank you. Approval of this item is very, very important and is especially supportive of the point of AB 617. AB 617 was intended for people who live in and near the sources of pollution can voice their needs. This is a very, very successful bill, as long as the voice of the people is being heard, understood, and honored. Please approve this item for the sake of the people who are being affected by the pollutants that are being addressed in this particular selection of people for this year. Please support this. It is very important to the residents in the areas where those problems are identified. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet.
Next, I have Cynthia Pinto Cabrera.
Hi, good morning, Chair and members of the board. Cynthia Pinto Cabrera, Policy Assistant with the Central Valley Air Quality Coalition, or CVAC. And CVAC is a region-wide coalition supporting all various CBOs throughout the valley, especially those who are selected 617 communities. We serve on the Stockton Community Steering Committee, and just wanted to quickly express the support for the car sharing program in Stockton and express support for the 2 Shafter initiatives as well, especially the road sidewalk pavement improvements, and continue to encourage the Valley Air District to push forward these kind of initiatives like the pavement measure that is really community driven, community led, and an outstanding need for the community. So thank you so much, and please push this forward. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments.
Next, I have Michael McManus. Michael, I believe you're still on mute.
Am I now? Did I unmute myself? Hello?
Hi, we can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. Hello, this is Michelle McManus, and I'm a member and resident of the Chapter AB 617. I wanted to express my full support of the chapter items, the initiatives that we're discussing. All the programs will be a benefit for all of us that live in chapter. And I just wanted to express my happiness that we're looking at this, and hopefully this will get passed. And thank you for all your time.
Thank you, Michelle.
Next, I have Destiny Rivas.
Good afternoon. My name is Destiny Rivas. I'm with the San Joaquin Urban Native Council as their chairwoman. I am calling to speak about the AB 617. I am in complete support. Our community has been greatly affected by the air quality, and we have been using part of the rideshare program that has been happening right now. We use the cars currently to take our elders to their appointments that are all the way in Sacramento. Because they don't have transportation over here. So we get to use these cars, and it beneficially helps them because that is the closest Indian health center around. Also, a lot of our people don't have cars, so we use them to get them to food programs that are local. We get them and take them to get all of their appointments. It's been very beneficial. I also work in the Stockton Unified at the Native American Indian Center, which is located in South Stockton. And a lot of our kids have benefited from these programs as well. I hope that you guys are in full support and that you vote to keep this. Thank you.
Thank you, Destiny.
Next, I have Linda Martin.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Honorable Chair, members of the board, my name is Linda Martin. I am a longstanding community steering member for Shafter AB 617. We're going on over 3 years now. I just wanted to thank you for your consideration with this matter for Shafter and express my full support for the projects. I wanted to specifically address the project for Highway 43. This is something that I have worked with Todd and our whole team that comes to Shafter. Why I bring it up is this is not a safe area for residents to get to town. I have seen moms trying to push strollers to go to the grocery store. I've seen children, high school students, trying to walk down a busy 4-lane road to get to school. And although we are very thankful for the reduction of the PM 2.5 that this will have in our community, especially now when we're dealing with some harvest dust, I feel that the safety that this can bring to our community is going to be valued so much, not just in the fact that what I see now, but what will be in the future. Shafter was given a grant to put a park in to the north of this area, and I feel like we're going to get even more traffic. So having a safe sidewalk in a bike lane will be instrumental to this community. I also wanted to just bring up that there are houses, front doors, windows, air conditioning systems that are literally maybe 20 feet off of a 4-lane road, highway, if you will, that connect Shafter and Wasco. So I'm hoping that we will also be able to use some of our urban greening or vegetative money to also help these folks that live there and have to deal with car emissions. So thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate your listening to me today and hopefully supporting this measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Next, I have Steve Isuman.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hi, my name's Steve Esselman. I'm the planning director for the city of Shafter, and I also wanted to voice the city's support of all the projects being mentioned today, particularly Cal 43's improvements. Currently, this is an unpaved road that North Shafter needs to use to get to the most local grocery store, as well as children going to school. It is, as Ms. Martin said, very dangerous at this point in time. So beyond the reductions that'll occur, it certainly will improve health and safety as a result. And so the city is very much in support, as well as the county's good efforts with the Mexican colony area, which is in our sphere of influence, but not in the city. But we certainly want to make sure that that area is also taken care of. With that, thank you so much for your time and energy.
Thank you, Steve.
Next, I have Veronica Aguirre.
Hi, good morning again. This is Veronica Aguirre. I'm representing HEAL, Healthy Environment for All Lives. We would like to thank you for the consideration of this measure and hope that you
All right, Veronica, we lost the last little bit of you, but you're in support of this. Thank you.
I do not see any more members of the public wanting to have a comment. Sorry, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Not many times that we take up an issue where we have unanimous, everyone on the same page, which is just fantastic. All right, I'm going to bring it back to the board. Dr. Sheriffs.
Thank you. I have a couple of brief comments, but before that, I just wanted to second Vice Mayor Fugazi's motion to approve this item. There we go. Good. Thumbs up. So, at first glance, sidewalks, curbs, that doesn't quite seem in our lane, as they say. But I really want to recognize the importance of the board's support for 617 processes and outcomes like this. Todd has pointed out in his presentation, this is guided by concerns and knowledge of the local communities, and I really appreciate the testimony we had today that helped my orientation in thinking about this. These are out of the box measures, something different. Well, isn't that great? We need all the out of the box thinking we can get. And we look at the co-benefits that have been highlighted in terms of air quality emissions, in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, in terms of safety for a community, in terms of promoting active transit. Esperanza had mentioned, one of the co-benefits of the example of we get the technology out. People see it and they see it works and it's great and they want to adopt it. They're looking to get an electric vehicle for themselves. So just a tremendous opportunities. And Todd had mentioned all of these projects include measuring outcomes, which is important because we need to know what's been accomplished and help guide future work. But also I think those measures are really important. We don't want these to be isolated projects. We want them to tie into other projects in these communities. We want other communities to see this and think about how they can bring these kinds of benefits to their communities. So thank you for excellent presentation, Todd, and thanks very much for all of the testimony from the community. And again, happily second Vice Mayor Fugazi's motion to approve.
Perfect. Any other board comments? Seeing none, we do have a motion and a second on the floor, so I'm going to ask for call the roll.
Sure. And through the chair, Ms. Sheklin has joined the meeting. Mr. Bessinger,
Yes.
Mr. Chiesa,
Aye.
Mr. Couch,
Yes.
Ms. Fugazi,
Happily, yes.
It was
Ms.
almost
Lewis,
hard.
Yes.
Mr. Mendez,
Yes.
Dr. Pacheco Warner,
Yes.
Mr. Pereira,
Aye.
Mr. Prasiato,
I vote yes.
Mr. Rickman.
Yes.
That was a yes. Thank you. Dr. Sheriff,
Yes.
Ms. Sheklin,
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you very much. Move on to item 10, accept and appropriate $12.9 million in additional revenue from the California Air Resources Board to fund the replacement of heavy-duty trucks with zero and near-zero emission technology. And I see Todd is continuing on. Go ahead, Samir.
Mr. Chair, just board members, quick intro to the item here. Your board has always placed a high level of priority on advocacy every year for the Valley's needs, bringing resources to the Valley. So this item is another outcome of that advocacy where we were able to successfully get an allocation of dedicated funding for heavy-duty truck replacement projects. And so this item is to bring those funds to the board for action so that we can feed this into our grant programs and do even more work in this space to reduce this critical sector in terms of our air pollution issues here in the Valley. And with that, I'll turn it over to Todd to present the item.
Thank you, Samir. Again, Mr. Chair, members of the board, I am here this morning seeking your board's approval to accept and appropriate $12.9 million in funding from CARB to fund the replacement of heavy-duty diesel trucks with zero and near-zero emission technology. So just by way of a brief background and to set some context, and this is certainly something that you've heard before but bears repeating, reducing emissions from mobile sources is a key district strategy to meet federal ambient air quality standards. Emissions from these heavy-duty vehicles are primarily under the jurisdiction of state and federal government, and heavy-duty trucks in particular are the single largest source of NOx and diesel PM in the Valley. So in addition to the benefits that we receive from the statewide truck and bus regulation implementation, voluntary incentive programs are critical to transitioning fleets in the Valley to the next generation of cleaner technology and achieving those reductions needed to meet those federal air quality standards. So towards that end, as Samir mentioned, your board has long advocated and prioritized funding for heavy-duty diesel emission reduction projects such as the truck replacement program. For years, the district has successfully implemented truck replacement programs. We've repowered, retrofitted, or replaced more than 7,300 heavy-duty trucks with cleaner alternatives over the years. To ensure that the program remains effective, your board has recently approved changes to the district's truck program that are consistent with the state Carl Moyer program to allow 2010 compliant trucks to be replaced with zero and near zero emission technology, among other changes like including increased incentives for that cleanest zero and near zero emission technology. And again, as Samir mentioned, significant advocacy has taken place and continues to take place with your board's direction. And this advocacy in the 21-22 state budget resulted in $45 million in dedicated funding for the replacement of trucks with zero and near zero emission technology in severe or extreme non-attainment areas. There are two districts that received this funding, this district and the South Coast Air Quality Management District. Of that amount, $12.9 million in funding has been allocated directly to the district to be utilized within our existing truck replacement program and our existing truck replacement program guidelines. And so the recommendations before you this morning are to accept this $12.9 million in funding from CARB for the replacement of these heavy-duty trucks, and then approve the attached budget resolution to amend the 2022-23 district budget to appropriate this funding. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, I see Supervisor Mendez.
Yeah, I got Todd, can you kind of give me an example of what kind of vehicle do you expect that they would want to fund for this deal? And I'm saying this, I'm for this, but I'm just kind of want an example.
Yeah, specifically this funding, and it's really based on the program guidelines sort of determine what's eligible and what's not eligible. At this point, what's eligible would be ultra low NOx natural gas fired engines, so 0.02 gram engines, or all electric truck technology. So those are the two types of.
Now, do you have any very many people waiting in the queue for this deal to be approved, or? Actually,
it's picking up. It really is. We're, as you would expect, some of the larger fleets are going to be the first ones to transition to these newer technologies. But we have seen an increase in demand in these programs, and we expect that to continue.
Because it's basically the large fleets, and
yeah,
and I'll use the word larger companies. I won't use the four-letter word corporations.
Right.
That would be doing this. And the only thing I'm kind of worried about is down the road, are we basically going to regulate the small independent truckers out of existence?
Yeah, I can. Well, I don't know if I can tackle that last part per se, but I'll give it a shot. Just more context to what you're seeing with the truck and bus reg is, by the end of this year, basically the 2010 so-called compliant truck is basically the new baseline. There are some issues with some small fleets up and down the state that definitely are going to need some attention with that rule because of supply chain issues and other issues that have come up through COVID and other challenges that really are coming to. The board talked about this issue, and CARB is certainly aware of that as well. Now, in the bigger scheme of this, the baseline becomes 2010 truck compliance. So what you're seeing now with the grant programs is a pivot from how do you actually take that 2010 compliant fleet and how do you get it down to basically zero or near zero. And so you are seeing in that space, quite a bit of truck technology being put forward, both on the electric side as well as on the what's called the renewable natural gas side. And depending on the availability of those trucks, that's something that we're in very active conversations with all the truck manufacturers. You're seeing new product lines that are being developed, and a lot of interest in these fleets now that are basically already at the 2010 level and have been maybe for 7, 8, 9, 10 years, and are now replacing those 2010 compliant trucks with, and we're really pushing them to go to the next generation, because really right now under under the current system, you can actually just go to the latest 2010 technology, and you're not getting any extra benefit from that. So these programs are really geared at getting to that next level. Now, I think on the small fleet side, there are some major concerns and issues with that area. It was a big topic of conversation Mr. Cunha mentioned earlier with CARB. There's a lot of conversation going on around how do we make sure that those small fleets are actually getting into compliance with the help that they need, so that we not only get the emission reduction benefit that we need, but we also don't have a disruption to our supply chain, right? Because a lot of this could be in the agricultural sector, other sectors, and so you get a sort of a double disbenefit in not coming up with some ways to help those fleets, deal with the current requirements that are in place. So that is just a recognition of that issue, but there's the broader context of fleets continuing to look for ways to reduce beyond the current rules. That was my attempt to try to address both issues there. Hopefully. Great question.
If that's it, okay. Dr. Sheriff.
Lloyd didn't have something.
Okay, he does, but I skipped him, so go ahead and ask your.
Go ahead.
Okay. Following up on that, yeah, we have concerns for the smaller fleets, the smaller truckers, how they're going to transition. I'm presuming part of what happens with this, though, in a way that this helps with that, even though it may be taken advantage of by the larger fleets. Well, doesn't it make cleaner trucks available in the used truck market that can help other truckers upgrade? That would seem to be one way that it may be helping. And the other is, again, it helps push the technology. It helps mainstream the technology, helps it become less expensive in the long run. So, thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. My question, Samir or Todd, is, in the tractor program, we allow people to turn in tier 2s and 3s for a 4, and then the 3s can go back and trade for a 0. Is there any sort of possibility of that type of program here, that if somebody takes a 2010 or 11 truck and turns it in, that then that could be placed with someone who has a non-compliant truck? Because I really am concerned about the supply chain. I think we're really, we don't want to exacerbate the issues here in the Valley, and when you hurt the supply chain, our disadvantaged communities get hurt the worst. So anyways, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that concept of truck trade up is certainly something that's been looked at in the past. We've implemented pilot programs to try and match up folks with cleaner trucks, and I think the benefit of a program like this, and I think it was mentioned, is that by transitioning to these cleanest of trucks, you do make significantly more 2010 compliant trucks available in the marketplace. Whether or not they are eligible for incentives under the program, at this point, it's the programs are geared towards getting early or extra reductions, and so just getting to a 2010 compliant truck is not something that the state programs currently allow for, because basically that's the standard. That's what you have to achieve in practice. But it does, by transitioning those larger fleets, it does make those trucks available at a significantly reduced cost, those used trucks, so that those smaller fleets could then get into those compliant trucks, with a less out-of-pocket expense.
So how do we change the rule, Todd? I think that's what
That's a great question, and I think there's a lot of talk going on statewide about implementation issues with the truck and bus regulation at this point.
Mr. Chair, board members, I think one thing we can do, because there is a lot of evaluation going on this issue, and it's much broader, by the way. I mean, if you look at the scale of the number of trucks that may come out of a program like this, it's great to get $12-13 million, but we're talking about potentially an order of magnitude or two greater, like with the scale of trucks that are impacted by the the small fleet issues, the upcoming deadlines and all that. It's a big issue. And I think maybe what we could do is come back to the board with some, especially through CARB, it's obvious, it's CARB's rule. These are state funds that we're talking about here. I think it would be good as they work on this issue, working with the various stakeholders on that, maybe for us to provide some kind of report back on kind of where that is. But this particular program, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the scale of what we're talking about here.
And I would agree that because time keeps on ticking, and we've got 5 months left till this comes into effect. So I think the conversation needs to be had sooner rather than later. Can I finish?
Yeah, and maybe the conversation with CARB is if people trade up to the 2010 or 12 or 13 or 14 year models, that it's a temporary, right? That they could use those trucks for maybe another couple of years till we get past the issues that we're facing, and then those trucks go away. Anyways, I just hope that something can happen in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Pachenko-Warner.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think something that might be helpful, maybe for the board members, and I don't know if the staff, the district staff attended the workshop that CARB just did on August 11th around this particular rule and the compliance rates that they're seeing based on DMV registration. I think it'd be really important for our board to sort of understand where the numbers are at right now, and really understand what the data is telling us in terms of this, and also what CARB and the state are actually looking at in terms of the current processes. If folks wanted to be involved in it, there is an active process around this right now. And so I think maybe bringing some of that information and data to the board would be helpful to further understand where this is at, and truly in the compliance, and then how we can provide meaningful input, not just as the district, but as interested stakeholders.
All right, thank you. And I might say congratulations on your new little baby.
Thank you.
I see no one else for comment. So we'll go out to the public.
I have a public comment here in the Fresno office.
Mr. Chairman, 3 minutes definitely is plenty of time to discuss this little tiny issue. But you're right. I want to comment that we've had meetings over the last 5 weeks with ARB's new bus and truck director or administrator, whatever you wish to call Mr. Craig, with his team of staff. 2 things have arisen with the ARB staff. We've had calls with, even last Friday at 4 o'clock, with the entire ARB staff and Roger Isom and myself. And that is, we have 2 other things confronting us. When I say this to the board, I think Buddy Mendes will get this one, several of you will also. AB 5 is going to kill the independent trucker without any other problems. Now he or she has to face, DMV is not going to issue their license to them on January 1 of 23 because their truck is a tier 3 and not a tier 4, 2010 and newer. That is a big issue. So there's no funding for used trucks. We went to the used truck market. Freightliner, Peterbilt, Mack, Volvo, all of those truck guys have been in discussion with all of us. There is no used trucks around just laying in California, so we have to go out of state to find them. And the price has gone up quite considerably versus a $100,000 truck, 400,000 miles. Now it's 150,000. So we've asked CARB for 2 things. The manufacturers are delayed on producing new trucks. Alone, an electric truck ain't going to be seen for a long time. We do know the new diesel trucks, the tier 4 finals, are going to be available for growers or businesses probably in a year and a half to two. So they are working with us. They've been in discussion, they being ARB, with the manufacturers, and they're working on a program so that our farmers that produce food and carry food is going to have an opportunity to use their Tier 4 truck yet through a program that we've worked on with it's in the regulation. So we're following that. The one that CARB has a real problem with is exactly what this board's struggling with. The 16,000 independent truckers in the San Joaquin Valley. That's what's here. How do we deal with all of those folks and getting a cleaner used truck? The funding, the governor has $92 billion. Put some of that money to this district that does a great job in distributing funds, giving a 50% for a used truck so we can get these people back to work. Alone to worry about AB5, but they got to worry about a brand new truck, a used truck. I hope that the board does have this thing come back to them because it needs to be addressed because the rural EGI communities are going to get burned bad, and that's not right at all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Manuel.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Chris McLaughlin, again, to speak on this issue. We're supportive of the funding allocations for the electrification of these trucks. We understand that this is a necessary project category that needs the funding to make those replacements, but to echo my colleague Manuel Cunha's sentiments, we do have concerns in terms of further impacts even within the next year of what's really going to happen with small independent truckers as well as smaller fleets, not necessarily independent truckers. To Supervisor Pereira's point in finding an opportunity for these, I guess, a truck trade-up program like that, and only being able to use it for a couple of years after that, there's multi-layered regulations, specifically the Advanced Clean Fleets regulation, where 2010 diesel trucks up to, I believe it's 2016, there's a timeline on diesel trucks that they'll only be allowed to be used for a certain amount of time before they're eventually going to be converted to the electrification type of technology. So we understand that, again, this is a necessary project category for the funding. We have some ideas in terms of different project categories that we could use. We've demonstrated it with the electric yard trucks at some of our tree nut processing facilities that have been able to convert older diesel equipment over to the electric equipment category side. And it's worked very well, but we understand the necessity to electrify these trucks and the project category, but we do echo these sentiments on the concerns of small independent operators and smaller fleets. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
I do not see any more public comment here in the Fresno office.
Bakersfield?
There's no public comment in Bakersfield.
Modesto?
No public comment in Modesto.
Thank you. Online?
I do have public comment on Zoom. Cynthia Pinto Cabrera.
Hi, thank you again, Cynthia Pinto Cabrera with CVAC here. I'm also expressing some support for the adoption of this. I would just like to highlight that historically, the Valley Air District's incentive programs that, like potentially this one and others, are on a first come, first served basis, which we find very problematic, especially for those small independent operators, especially those in the AB 617 communities. So we definitely encourage the Valley Air District to, rethink a lot of the way that they're distributing this money and cease to implement a first come, first served basis to really focus in on those smaller independent folks, especially those in 617 communities who are struggling to, meet attainment and go above and beyond to meet our air quality goals. So that's just something that I'd like to highlight for as a request, but also to this board that has been an issue on various incentive programs. Smaller folks, smaller operators, not only truckers, but in other industries as well, do not have the same resources as the larger corporations. So we hope that the Valley Air District really puts in some extra effort to prioritize those applications versus the first come, first serve. Thank you.
Thanks, Cynthia.
Next, I have Janet Dietz-Kamei.
Thank you. I'm hoping that you will approve and accept this offering from CARB. I live in the Francher Creek area, which is just north of the Sunnyside area on the very east side of Fresno. When we bought our house, there was no freeway 180 and there was no business park. Since a freeway was built and a business park has been built quite close to the 180 near Belmont. There were houses there to start, ours included, and the developers have been building more and more and more houses. And those are all going to be affected by the heavy duty trucks that are using the freeway and coming to the business park. There are a lot of communities in Fresno area and in the valley that have the same circumstance where they are near warehouses, near business parks, near freeways. And all of these are improved by electrifying the heavy trucks that are in support of economy, of businesses. So this is a step in the right direction, accepting this money. And I hope that you do approve, because it starts us healing the problem that we have here regarding mobile sources. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet.
Next, I have Argo Chemical.
Hello there, and thank you. My name is Guy Rogers at Argo Chemical, just outside of Shafter. We would like to definitely voice our support for the program, but I'd like to reiterate Ms. Pinto Cabrera's concern with the first come, first served basis for the program. Argo has a small fleet for our wholesale distribution, and we've been very interested in obtaining new lower emission trucks, especially to replace some of our aging trucks. But it seems like right now a lot of the options are either out of stock or not on market yet, or have long wait lists. So is it possible to apply for the district's truck replacement program funds on a sort of wait list basis while we are on a wait list to receive a new low emission truck? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Guy.
And I do not see any more public comment on Zoom.
Mr. Chair, if I could just respond really quick to a couple of related comments for the record. Just wanted to first thank Cynthia Pinto Cabrera from CVAC and also the gentleman, Mr. Rogers, I believe from Argo Chemical. They raised some really good points. I would like to connect them with some grant staff who can work with them to let them know, all the efforts that do go on. Our staff are constantly in communication with our small truck fleets. We've had a lot of priority in our programs for small fleet outreach, and if they have any ideas for how we could, better do that outreach, we're certainly open to their thoughts. And funding is currently available. So this funding is actually feeding into a program that actually has funding available. So nothing about the first come, first served approach is really holding anybody back. Now, the wait list issues with respect to supply chain and the manufacturers, that's a real issue. And so we are exercising a lot of flexibility in our programs. When we issue a contract, for example, we do understand that it may take some time, to put an order in to receive the truck. And so we've been working with our contractees to extend deadlines. We're in constant communication with manufacturers. So definitely want to respond to that concern as well. And that we'd encourage, the gentleman from ARCO and other fleet operators to come in and actually get the grant funding put the orders that they need in. The funding is available. This funding supplements that funding. Even more funding would be available if the board were to accept this funding. And certainly, we're doing a lot of outreach with actually our small fleet operators, and as mentioned before, working with CARB and our stakeholders. And I hope that's also support from CVAC for coming up with solutions to deal with the labor issues that are another major issue for owner operators. I think that's the Uber law, and it was mentioned I think by Mr. Cunha. There's other issues beyond the truck and bus rule that are really impacting our small fleets. So hopefully there's engagement there and collective support for helping our small fleets deal with some very real issues that are in front of them, and hope to see that engagement from CVAC and others to support that process as that moves forward, and hopefully a report back to our board where we can get even more support for helping those small fleets truly and connecting them with the staff here who do work with them on a daily basis. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to you and the board.
All right. I'll bring it back to the board. Supervisor Mendez.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. If you'll call the roll.
Thank you. And through the chair, Mr. Bessinger has left the meeting. Mr. Chiesa,
Aye.
Mr. Couch,
Yes.
Ms. Fugazi, I believe she has stepped out. Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Mendez,
Yes.
Dr. Pacheco Warner,
Yes.
Mr. Pereira,
Aye.
Mr. Preciado,
Yes.
Mr. Rickman,
Yes.
Dr. Sheriff,
Yes.
Ms. Shucklin,
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler,
Yes.
motion passes.
Perfect. Thank you. On to item 11, update on planning efforts for federal particulate matter and ozone standards.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm giggling because Samir and I were strategizing about this item before the board meeting. And he told me that if it was already 11 o'clock, I might have to do a fast version, but it's like 10 to 11. So I think I get to do like the really long version, right? No? Oh, dang it. All right.
You gotta watch the board.
Good thing we clarified that before I got started, because you know how I am. I'm here to give you an update on what's going on in the world of planning here at the district. All of this is guided by federal law, and in particular the Clean Air Act. And the Clean Air Act is structured through cooperative federalism. And what that means is that there's special roles for each level of government, and it's really important that we all work together to make sure that we are both meeting the administrative requirements of the Clean Air Act and improving air quality in the San Joaquin Valley. So throughout the presentation today, you're going to hear about the different roles each of our agencies have, from the federal government, EPA, the state government, the California Air Resources Board, and then here at the local level, the San Joaquin Valley Air District, and all the partners that we work with through these efforts. Under the Clean Air Act, it really starts as EPA sets air quality standards, and there are actually even more than this. But these are the 6 that we focus on the most here at the Air District recently: the 3 8-hour ozone standards, and then the 3 PM 2.5 standards. EPA designates non-attainment areas and establishes planning requirements, and then states and regions like ours adopt state implementation plans, or SIPs, to satisfy Clean Air Act requirements and try to show attainment of these various standards. The good news is there is a lot of overlap here. Even though each SIP is like a standalone document meeting these various requirements, each SIP is really building on the work of prior SIPs. Each SIP is a snapshot of continued air quality improvements. Meeting federal standards, though, is very critical to both improving air quality and protecting public health. But we can't do it alone. It's important that we work with our interagency partners. The good news is that we have been doing a lot of work as an agency, adopting numerous regulations and plans and strategies to try to address these federal standards. And thanks to all this effort, we're seeing tremendous reduction in stationary sources. CARB has also adopted numerous mobile source emissions reductions, and together our regulatory strategies are the nation's toughest emissions controls programs. You won't find anything more stringent than what we have here in the Valley and in California. In addition, we go beyond those regulations with really strong incentive programs. You already heard about some really great ones this morning that expedite fleet turnover and get us more emissions reductions sooner than we could through local and state regulations alone. So through all these investments, we are making really major improvements in air quality. We can show that through the emissions inventory, the actual amount of oxides of nitrogen emissions that are being emitted in our region. I get chills every time I see this chart when I think about how much we've been able to reduce emissions from 1980 to 2021. Even back when we did the 2007 ozone plan, our NOx emissions were at about 400 at that time, and we've cut that amount in half. That's just staggering when you think about the technology and effort and cooperation from everyone involved in air quality in the San Joaquin Valley. This really is a success story. And notice also on this chart, though, that blue bar is kind of looking you right in the eye. We're seeing that the green bar, the stationary sources, has decreased a lot. And the mobile source part of this has decreased, but it is by far the biggest chunk of emissions being emitted in the San Joaquin Valley right now. And that presents some pretty unique challenges that we need to continue addressing in our upcoming SIPs. But just celebrating the emissions reductions alone, that corresponds to measured improvement in our ambient air quality. We can see that for PM 2.5, looking at our design values. Now, design values are regulatory math. This is what shows you whether or not you attain various standards. And I'm going to tell you, these design values are not your friend. They are not meant to make this easy. They are designed to be challenging because they are structured to ensure very specific types of improvement in air quality. And so the fact that these design values, which they give a lot of weight to your worst days, and yet even those values are improving a lot here in the Valley. And this shows you the progress for PM 2.5 in particular. Even for 8-hour ozone, we're seeing a downward trend in our ozone design values. And that's something that we need to be very aware of, because it means that the things we're doing so far, they really are working. And we are on track to meet the ozone standards by the deadlines established in our attainment plans. And for the deadlines that are coming up in our newest attainment plan, which is, I'll talk to you more about that in a moment, but that would be the plan for the 2015 ozone standards. So we are making progress, but admittedly, we still have a lot of improvement to be had. So we're going to keep working on this with our interagency partners. And this is just another view of the progress in improving our ozone. So when I talked about cooperative federalism, and I really want to keep that cooperative federalism, one of the things we really need is for EPA to work with us and be timely on their end in acting on the submittals they receive from the Valley and from the California Air Resources Board. This is something Samir and others have been working with folks in DC and working directly with EPA to really advocate for, because when EPA doesn't approve our things on time, it ends up being harder for them to approve our plans because of new information that becomes available that frankly wasn't available to us 4 years ago. But then we end up getting penalized because of the sanction structure in the Clean Air Act. And these sanctions only affect the people and businesses of the Valley. Those sanctions don't affect EPA. Those sanctions don't affect the California as a whole. Those sanctions attach to the Valley. So we need to make sure EPA recognizes how severe that can be for our region if they're not cooperating with us as required under the Clean Air Act. So what this means is that when we don't have approved plan elements in place on time, because EPA hasn't finished processing our plans, there are significant permitting offsets. There's potential for transportation fund loss of local control. There's also a lot of regulatory uncertainty. When we establish commitments and then EPA doesn't give us the thumbs up on those commitments, it's hard to know whether those commitments are eventually going to satisfy what they're looking for under the Clean Air Act. There's also just a huge inequity in addressing the air quality and public health challenge, given the significance of federal mobile sources and the threat of sanctions imposed solely on regions. This doesn't absolve us of our responsibility, of course, but it means that it is imperative that each agency and each facet of this effort do their part. I can say that EPA has approved some of our key PM 2.5 actions, but there are really some significant pending actions that remain with EPA. And this is for a plan that we adopted back in 2018. So it's been almost 4 years and we're still working through some of these issues. The good news is that they have approved our series plan for the 2006 standard, the moderate plan for the 2012 standard. EPA has found that we have attained the 1997 PM 2.5 standard, and they've approved some really important recent regulations, including the new ag burn phase out and residential wood burning. So that's all good things, but there's still work to be done in terms of the cooperative federalism component of these efforts. So, and I'm just going to summarize this. There's a lot of detail here. Basically, for the 1997 PM 2.5 standard, there's still some work to do in getting EPA to finalize approval of that state implementation plan and to evaluate an attainment finding for us for the annual standard. As you might recall, the chart I think I had on slide 2 of this presentation, for the PM 2.5 standards, there's 2 components, an annual component and a 24-hour component. For 97, EPA has found that we've attained the 24-hour component. They have not done so for the annual yet, and we're working with them on that because we believe the data shows that we do likely meet that annual standard. But there's process involved in that, so we're doing our part. We need EPA to do their part. For the 2012 PM 2.5 standard, EPA proposed approval of this plan back in December of 2021, except for contingency measures. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But they have not finalized approval of that plan, and they are currently in litigation regarding timely action on that SIP. And under the latest consent decree, which was just amended in July, they've extended the deadline out to April of 2023. So that leaves us in a little bit of a regulatory limbo as far as that plan is concerned. But we'll keep working with the agencies and, if needed, give EPA what they need to approve that plan. Another side of the federal role that we really need is federal mobile source emissions reductions. As you heard from Todd earlier today, we have limited abilities to reduce emissions from trucks. We have some wonderful grant programs that do contribute in a very big way, but ultimately we need the federal government to also reduce mobile source emissions in the San Joaquin Valley. You saw in there's emissions charts earlier in my presentation, and here's another graph showing that California has stringent mobile source measures, but now the remaining emissions are dominated by federal sources. So we really need significant federal investment and actions to deploy clean fleet vehicles, equipment, and infrastructure technologies. We can't do it alone. We need that cooperation. So here's an update on the attainment status of the 1997 Ozone and PM 2.5 standards. As I mentioned a moment ago, EPA has found that the Valley does attain the 24-hour component of the 1997 PM 2.5 standard. The district and CARB together are continuing to review wildfire and other exceptional events impacts on the Valley attainment status during the most recent time period. A couple takeaways here. One thing to note is that those design values, the regulatory math I mentioned before, it's always based on 3-year averages. So if you have a bad year like we did in 2020 and also 2021, due to circumstances completely beyond your control, namely record-breaking wildfires, those data points affect your region for many years. And so we are working through EPA's federal regulations on exceptional events to show that we actually do attain the 1997 PM 2.5 standard, and then as well as the 1997 ozone standard. I want to talk more about contingency measures, because even though there's a lot of good news for the plans overall, as you've heard me talk about before, contingency measures are that one part that's just very difficult to solve. I think where we've ended up, we being nationally, where we've ended up on contingency measures is so far away from the original intent. Contingency measures were meant to be something that give you a little bit of air quality benefit while you fix your SIP, if you need to fix your SIP. And we were able to meet the contingency requirements many years ago based on showing that we are going above and beyond the minimum emissions reductions needed. Well, litigation totally changed that and made it extremely difficult to come up with any measures at all that satisfy the requirement, let alone the magnitude that's needed for EPA to approve your attainment plan for that facet. the fact is contingency measures, this idea of holding something back just in case you need it, makes no sense in our region. We are non-attainment for multiple NACs. You saw the 6 I talked about earlier today. We know that more stringent NACs are probably in our future. Holding back just doesn't work. We need to improve public health as quickly as we can and not delay anything that's actually feasible. And the fact is we're not really holding back anything anyway. We are already implementing the most stringent stationary and mobile source emissions requirements. There's also something in the contingency world called the Contingency Trigger, where you have the measure fully adopted and ready to go, but you're not allowed to implement it unless it is triggered by an EPA finding. That trigger just doesn't work for most measures. Either you require it or you don't. Kind of standing by just in case doesn't work for most of the transformative technology and infrastructure things that are required to get emissions reductions. So frankly, there's just a scarcity of control measures that meet this highly restrictive contingency definition. And the existing policies, EPA's baseline policy regarding the required amount of contingency measures is prohibitively high. For one of our plans, we're talking about a NOx equivalent of about 20 tons per day of contingency measures. Even coming up with measures you do right now equaling 20 tons per day would be extremely difficult, but then identifying those and then holding them back is just completely counterintuitive for what we're supposed to be doing here. EPA, however, has disapproved or proposed disapproval of district contingency measures for several of our attainment plans and attainment plans nationwide. I want to point that out as well. We are not alone here. Regions throughout the nation, there's really no example of EPA approving someone's complete contingency measure demonstration. You can find isolated examples where they might approve one contingency regulation, but to have that whole suite of measures that actually meets the baseline magnitude, it's just not happening. And as a result, we are under sanctions clocks. We have sanctions and FIP clocks running. We are working hard to develop contingency measures, but it's going to require a lot of analysis, innovation, outreach, and interagency coordination. We've got to get creative, and we need CARB and EPA to get creative with us. We are working closely with CARB to prepare a contingency package. We anticipate that we would bring this to your consideration later on in 2022. I anticipate that this package would establish a framework for meeting the intent of contingency measure requirement without delaying public health benefits. I think we can all agree that's really important. We want to make sure while the administrative requirements are important, they're not more important than getting public health benefits. This analysis will include a scarcity demonstration, just to document for EPA, both in terms of the regulations that are available and the regulatory situation nationwide, that due to our limited authority, the stringent measures already in place, and the deployment challenges, there's just a scarcity of measures available that really work for contingency. We are reviewing potential measures. The feasibility is extremely difficult given the contingency restraints. We are also requesting that EPA review federal mobile sources under their jurisdiction, given the significance of federal sources for our inventory. We're getting a little bit of resistance on this one, but we're going to keep working on it. And again, it's never been done before, but we're at a place where we need to all get creative, all three of our agencies. We anticipate that we will hold a joint district CARB public meeting to discuss our contingency measure SIP update later in September. Let's shift gears to talk a bit about the ozone plan. Am I doing all right so far, Supervisor Mendez? I know you wanted me to keep it going. Oh, man, I can talk faster. I'm just kidding. I won't do that. I will try to hit some highlights, though. As you've heard before, we are working on a new attainment plan to address the 2015 ozone NACs. We're seeing tremendous progress in reducing our ozone concentrations. And so, but we still need a strategy that's going to get significant emissions reductions over the coming years. We've seen progress, but we're not at that dotted line yet. New emissions reductions are already happening and will continue to happen thanks to all the district measures that have been adopted very recently and are still being fully implemented. Rules on glass melting furnaces, engines, boilers, the ag burn phase out. We're working on rules for leak detection and repair. We're evaluating additional opportunities to support measure development and leverage agency partnerships such as building decarbonization, lawn and garden, locomotives, anything we can do to get funding and emissions reductions to our region. CARB recently released their latest state SIP strategy. just a couple weeks ago, in fact. And for the San Joaquin Valley, their emissions reductions include, but are not limited to, the state truck and bus regulation and advanced clean fleets. We are also, again, requesting federal support to reduce federally regulated mobile source emissions. Through the new emissions reductions that will be achieved in the coming decade, there will be a 62% reduction in NOx emissions by the 2037 attainment target. I want to state that this plan has really thorough science, both because we've been doing studies and plans for many decades now, and we're building upon that, making it even better with an updated emissions inventory, the latest ambient data analysis, weight of evidence analysis, a RAC demonstration, and technical documents. We are also compiling the other demonstrations required under the Clean Air Act for transportation conformity, contingency measures, hopefully, reasonable further progress, and reasonably available control technology. Even though we're going to keep looking at everything available to us and requesting that the federal agencies look at any strategies available to them, the good news is that the initial modeling indicates that the Valley will attain that 70 ppb standard by the 2037 deadline. The modeling also confirms that the Valley is highly NOx limited, which means that the VOC emissions controls are generally less effective for reducing our ozone concentrations in the Valley. That's something that we've shown in the past, and it's something we continue to evaluate with each and every plan. In terms of our process, you've been hearing us talk about this plan for a couple years already through regular governing board meeting updates. We also give updates at CAC and EJ. We've had several public workshops. And then there's a process for remaining meetings and workshops coming up here in the next few months. CARB just released their state SIP strategy. They're holding a workshop next week. CARB will have a hearing on the state SIP strategy, and that's not just for us, that's for South Coast and all the other ozone non-attainment areas. Their hearing is on September 22nd. In late September, we anticipate holding a workshop on our full 2022 ozone plan draft. We are tentatively scheduled to bring the plan before your board in December. And then in early 2023, CARB would have a hearing on our plan, tentatively. Oh, that's it. Hey, look at that. I thought I had something else, but I'm all done. Probably a good thing, huh? Supervisor Mendez? I'd be happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you. Any questions of the board? Seeing none, then we'll go out to the public.
I do not see here any public here in the Fresno office.
Any in Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Modesto?
No public comment in Modesto.
Online?
I do have a public comment. Cynthia Pinto Cabrera.
Hello again, Cynthia with CVAC. CVAC has advocated for clean air and equitable policies in the Valley for 2 decades and has been closely engaged with various SIPs at the local, at the state level, and our efforts do not end at the state level. We also are urging US EPA to strengthen regulations within their authority process. But going back to the SIP today is, despite the progress that's being depicted in today's presentation, the fact is that the Valley still has some of the worst air quality in the nation. Valley communities are still in the highest percentile impacted by pollution and social vulnerabilities in the state, according to the CalEnviro screen. We shouldn't be celebrating continuous decades of deadly air. This board must take accountability for its mission as a public health agency and truly enforce the rules that this agency takes pride in and address community concerns. There's various loopholes that benefit polluters in a lot of these rules. No more loopholes. This board must implement direct emissions reductions from the dirtiest and oldest stationary sources, make up for the failures of the emissions reductions credit system, plus take public health and social costs into consideration in your programs and rulemaking. The narrative that there is nothing more that can be done by Valley Air is not true. Additional measures that Valley Air can take in these plans include directly enforcing and closing the loopholes in best available control technology and the best available retrofit control technology, starting with the oldest and largest stationary sources, updating its indirect source rule, addressing soil NOx from fertilized fields, and including pesticides. Valley Air residents need the air district to be accountable for the continued failures to meet air quality standards and address community concerns with the list that I just laid out. And thank you for the continued work and engagement with CVAC, but there's definitely more that can be done, and we look forward to continuing to collaborate. Thank you.
Next, I have Janet Dietz-Kamay.
Thank you. My discussion is from the standpoint of having asthma, and there are a lot of us in this valley who have asthma and other respiratory diseases. Today, I had to walk my dog wearing an N95 mask. Now, everybody knows what it's like to wear an N95 mask, and many do not like doing that, but I do when the air is unsafe for me to breathe. The particulates were too high for me. PM 2.5 was too high for me to safely breathe. During summer months, I can't go outside in the afternoon due to ozone presence in the air. A mask does not help me. The ozone comes right through. So I have to stay inside. 60 particles per ppbs is too high for me to breathe. I cannot get air in. When ozone is in the air, it is as if I have a bag over my head, and when I inhale, nothing goes in. So yeah, I spend the afternoons during summertime in my home. We have to accept wildfire as something that is more a norm now due to climate change. The air is drier, the air is hotter. The trees are dehydrated. Trees are weakened by the beetles. Things are different now. We don't get the rains we used to get. We don't have the ability, or haven't been able to, clear out the undergrowth. And as a result, wildfires are now more a norm. So we have to figure that in. We have to figure in that wildfires are going to present higher PM 2.5. Now, we do have a couple of things that we can do. Total ban of residential fire use, indoor and outdoor fireplaces. Elimination of ag burning, something that CARB has been working on. Things of that nature are quick, and they are something that can bring down our PM 2.5 quite successfully. As an asthmatic, this needs to be done because there are a lot of us who live here in this valley who have problems breathing, who become sick from breathing this air. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet.
And I see no more public comment on Zoom.
Mr. Chair, but board members, if I could just add a little more clarification just for the record and responding to some of the comments. Just wanted to note that there is a lot of additional public engagement on the plan. Well, not just the ozone plan, but also the contingency works its way through the process. So definitely want to encourage the commenters and others to continue participating and supporting that process. Really appreciate the feedback, the ideas. Jesse had mentioned a number of areas where those are directly coming from feedback that we've been getting, looking at, for example, building decarbonization. That's something that isn't a very traditional measure, but something that we're very interested in looking at and finding, new and creative ways to deal with these various issues. Definitely want to respond a little bit to some of the comments around, enforcing our rules. Obviously, we take our enforcement very seriously, and always happy to answer questions from anybody who's interested in understanding not only how the enforcement works, but also if they have a concern, about how the complaint system works and how we can connect them to either our staff or other agencies that may have a role in addressing some of the concerns. Like pesticides was brought up. That's primarily regulated by the Department of Pesticide Regulation. We play a role in certain aspects of that as well. So definitely want to engage with anybody interested in that. We've already been doing extensive engagement with our community steering committees and others, and really highlighting those concerns and trying to find additional ways of responding to those concerns. Very supportive of that process. Definitely nothing in this presentation hinted in any way that we're saying that nothing more can be done. In fact, we're continuing to put measures on the table, as Jessie very clearly articulated during her presentation. You'll be hearing additional information about the only of its kind indirect source review rule that we have in place. So we'll continue having conversations around that. And of course, your board actually put the ag burning strategy into place and are now with our team here on the ground and working to implement the strategy. We actually are phasing out the vast majority of ag burning in really just the next year or two. So it's already in place. This year, we've already seen significant, massive reductions in the remaining ag open burning due again to the actions by this board, working in partnership with CARB, in partnership with our communities who've been doing the outreach to our farmers, as was noted earlier in the Shafter community, a lot of engagement across all levels. So these efforts are ongoing, and just wanted to lastly note, and appreciate the comment around the wildfire impacts recently. We're actually having actually a lot of progress was being made all across, both PM and Ozone up until we just recently started seeing a wildfire, wafting into the valley that not only elevated PM 2.5, but have also provided the recipe for ozone spiking at atypical hours a little bit later in the day. And that's the NOx emissions that are also coming in from those same fires that are bringing in the PM 2.5. So we're definitely out there reaching out to communities to make sure they understand how to track that data and protect themselves. We're providing air purifiers, working with our partners and community-based organizations to reach out to communities through that program as well. And which is a suggestion that came in from communities to really try to respond to those concerns. So I just want to really highlight the extensive engagement that is still going on in this planning process, and really appreciate CVAC and others who have provided some really good ideas, and really look forward to continuing the work in that space, and appreciate the comments that were raised.
Thank you for the clarification, Samir and Jessie. Very good presentation. I disagree on one aspect, that we need to celebrate the success we've had, because if you look at the 1980 model to where we are today, I have never heard anyone at this air district ever speak of there's nothing else that can be done. To the contrary, it's just the opposite. It's becoming more difficult because of the control issue of what you just talked about, Samir, and that the non-mobile sources are such a small percentage that our gains are going to be incremental, so we need help. I want to thank Dr. Pacheco-Warner for writing an op-ed along with myself asking for more funding, because the incentive programs have really shown to be effective, and utilizing enforcement as a secondary tool. I think we've been very successful in cleaning the air. I talk about it. I know I send pictures to Samir all the time. Every day I can see the mountains, and something that 20 years ago I couldn't see. So I'm proud of the people that sat in these chairs before me and all the work they've done, and we have a lot of work to do. I don't want to deny that there's still issues, but we need help from the state and the federal government really to control some of those aspects and to clean up some of those aspects. So thank you again for your clarification, Samir. Are there any other board comments? All right, this was just and we've already gone to the public. This is just an item of an update, and so we'll move on to item 12. Receive and file the 2022 annual report on the district's indirect source review program.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Brian Clements, Director of Permit Services. The district's indirect source review rule, or ISR rule, was the first in the nation rule on indirect sources to help mitigate emissions from development projects. Initial implementation began in 2006, and its purpose is to mitigate growth in emissions of NOx and PM10 emissions from development projects, both construction-related and ongoing operational-related emissions, the bulk of which are from mobile sources. The rule promotes the incorporation of on-site clean air features and design elements that have immediate and local benefits to the community where the project is located. If the required reductions are not achieved through these on-site measures, developers are subject to off-site fees for the remaining amounts of required emission reductions. For these reasons, on-site measures are definitely preferred over off-site fees. And then all of the offsite mitigation fees collected by the district are used to fund clean air emission reductions in the valley. This slide contains a summary of the ISR rule applicability. One applicability mechanism is based on the land use approval process from the public agency, along with various project sizes. If the approval process with the agency is discretionary, the thresholds identified on the slide under the first bullet here are what's used to determine if the project is subject to the rule. For example, developments with 50 or more houses or a warehouse of 25,000 square feet or more would be subject to ISR through this mechanism. Another applicability mechanism is for large projects. For these, if the project exceeds certain size thresholds in the rule, the project is subject to ISR, and this is regardless of the public agency process. That applicability mechanism was added in a 2017 amendment to the rule. And then there's a third applicability category under the rule, which is for transportation and transit projects. As far as emission reductions required by the rule is designed to reduce emission impacts from development projects to assist the valley in meeting air quality standards. The rule breaks project emissions into two categories: construction emissions and operational emissions, with reduction requirements in each of those categories. For emissions related to construction, the focus is on tailpipe emissions from off-road equipment, and the requirements are to reduce NOx and PM emissions by 20 and 45% respectively, when compared to the California fleet average for the same type of equipment. For operational emissions, which are based on a 10-year period, the rule requires reductions in NOx and PM10 by 33.3 and 50% respectively when compared to baseline unmitigated projects. As mentioned, emission reductions through project clean air design elements are a key part of the program. Through the application process, the district provides a list of air quality improvement measures that developers can implement to reduce emissions from the project site. And since the majority of emissions from development projects are from mobile sources, much of the focus is on utilizing clean construction equipment, clean operating fleets, and reducing vehicle miles traveled. Developers also implement other measures such as those related to energy efficiencies and zero emissions infrastructure. Solar panel systems and electric vehicle charging are two such examples of those. The benefits to implementing on-site clean air measures result in an overall better project as emission reductions are achieved immediately and are permanent. Those reductions directly benefit the local community and reduces or eliminates the need to pay off-site emission reduction fees. To assist agencies and developers with project design elements, as well as overall ISR implementation, education, and sharing resources on the program, the district has an ISR webpage, which can be found at valleyair.org/ISR. This slide here has a screenshot of what that landing page looks like. Contains an overview of the program, but also numerous reference documents and links for stakeholders to utilize, such as shortcuts to the rule, an FAQ document, a brochure, a list of clean air measures, application forms, emissions calculation tools, and many other resources. That said, after all the on-site clean air measures are identified and taken into account, mitigation fees to cover the remaining emission reductions requirements on the rule may be necessary. And funds are used and invested in the valley through the district's grants and incentive program to reduce pollution in the valley, which consists of various programs such as grants to valley businesses to electrify and replace existing diesel-powered equipment, tractors, and irrigation pump engines are two examples. Grants to businesses to replace older trucks with new low-emission trucks. Grants to school districts for older and higher polluting school buses, grants for residences to purchase electric vehicles, repair older, higher polluting vehicles, and to replace fireplaces and other wood burning stoves with natural gas inserts, electric heat pumps, excuse me, and other clean burning units. As far as this year's activities go, we received 355 ISR project applications. Through the assessment of these applications, the emissions reductions total over 3,000 tons from the use of on-site clean air project design elements, and over 2,200 tons from off-site mitigation fees. Also during this reporting period, the district collected $3.3 million, which includes approximately $6 million in ISR funds and $7.3 million in VERA funds. Since 2006, the district has taken numerous measures to outreach and assist with ISR compliance. The district has held public workshops, held outreach meetings with numerous cities and counties, held training on various specifics of the program, and held follow-up educational workshops and meetings with agencies and stakeholders since the program began in 2006. As mentioned earlier, we have a website with resources, and in addition, through our California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA work, as a commenting agency on development projects, we send out hundreds of letters per year to agencies in the Valley to inform them and the developer of ISR applicability, requirements, and available resources on a project-by-project basis. Since initial implementation began in 2006, over 19,000 tons of emissions have been reduced via on-site clean air design elements, directly benefiting local communities near those projects. And through off-site mitigation fees, over $140 million have been invested in over 13,000 clean air projects, which have resulted in over 17,000 tons of total emission reductions in the Valley. As with any of our programs, the district is continuously seeking to further enhance the ISR rule and requirements. Along those lines, one related development has been the recent adoption of South Coast AQMD's warehouse ISR rule a couple years ago, which focuses on mobile source emissions from warehouses greater than 100,000 square feet. The South Coast approach in this rule is similar to the district's ISR rule in that it requires clean air design elements to reduce NOx and particulate emissions, and then mitigation fee payment as needed to achieve the remaining rule requirements. It also differs in a couple ways in that it applies to operational emissions from new and existing warehouses, while the district's ISR rule applies to new construction and operational emissions from various development types, residential developments, warehouses, and numerous other non-residential developments. Another key development is the South Coast rule is currently under litigation due to a lawsuit filed recently by the California Trucking Association, challenging the legality of the rule, including its applicability to existing warehouses. So the district will continue to keep an eye on that lawsuit, as the outcome may play into future ISR amendments and enhancements to the extent allowed and authority given under state and federal regulation, as well as case law. Over the years, the district has had significant success achieving emission reductions under ISR, including reductions achieved through the offsite mitigation fees, as described earlier. Since 2008, the collection rate to mitigate emissions has been $9,350 per ton of NOx and $9,011 per ton of PM10, and those are still the rates today. And over this time period, the cost of emission reductions through the funding of clean air projects has been steadily on the rise. And as more clean alternative technologies become available, this cost effectiveness is expected to continue to increase. As a point of reference, the minimum cost effectiveness per ton under the state's Carl Moyer program is now approximately $30,000 per ton. And to cover the district's cost of administering these funds, developers pay an administrative fee equal to 4% of the required offsite mitigation fee. This admin fee has been in place and remained at 4% since the rule's initial adoption, and is lower than all other grant programs that the district and other air districts administer. And those fees range from 6.25 to 15%. So moving forward, the evaluation of both these fees will be critical in ensuring the dollars collected by the district in the future are significant to continue to achieve and administer the required emission reductions under the rule. So that concludes the presentation, and I'll turn it back over to the chair for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you for the report. Any board member comments, questions? Seeing none, I'll go to public comment.
There's no public comment here in the Fresno office.
Bakersfield,
There's no public comment in Bakersfield.
Modesto,
No public comment in Modesto.
online.
I do have a public comment. Cento Pinto Cabrera.
Hello, Cindy Pinto Cabrera again, and just wanted to take the opportunity to elaborate on the previous comment where I mentioned indirect source rule, and it just so happened that you were all listening to an item on the indirect source rule as well. So in terms of the ISR rule, the Valley Air District, really needs to ensure that the existing ISR review is being robustly applied. In addition to the South Coast Air District, and as the presentation mentioned, the recently adopted rule, it is most definitely more rigorous, and the Valley should follow suit. Efforts should focus on maximizing the emissions reductions in disadvantaged communities that are disproportionately affected by pollution associated with the warehouses, distribution centers, rail yards, and other facility installation or combination of thereof, which attracts and can generate significant mobile source activity and has definitely been a source of concern for several AB 617 communities. The South Coast rule applies to all warehouses, while the Valley rule only applies to warehouses that were built after 2006 and large projects built after 2017, allowing for many projects to be exempt from the rule. And another note I'd like to highlight from the South Coast rule is that they also require tracking of the actual truck trips for an operator in some cases. There are some significant differences that could have tremendous impact for Valley Air residents, and definitely encourage for a stronger ISR rule to contribute to meeting our air quality standards, and again, asking Valley Air to strengthen the indirect source rule to ensure that it is enforced. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia.
I do not have any more public comments.
Okay. Bring it back to the board. This is item 12. We receive and file the annual report.
Move to receive and file.
Oh, Dr. Sheriff, I'm sorry. I'm going to go to you.
No, I'm sorry. I had a question about the reduction requirements in the plan, and it was mentioned in the future we may need to reconsider what the cost of getting reductions are. We may need to reconsider what our fee structure is as those things change over time. And I'm wondering about the reduction requirements, whether that's something that we anticipate that's what it will be, or whether over time, as we have more and more difficulty finding local sources to reduce, whether that's an area that may we may need to think about, whether we change what our expectations are about what the emission reductions would be. Page 4 on the presentation.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, through the chair, I'll take that as both a question and a comment too, because I think that there will be definitely more discussion down the road. No pun intended, as the board continues to evaluate opportunities under the ISR program. So I think that's certainly one aspect of the rule that is always open for discussion. Just as a reminder, the targets that are in the rule, they're part of a broader look at the way mobile source emissions and emissions reductions work. And so as a recollection, as a reminder, there's a steeply declining sort of mobile source inventory as different fleet rules and everything get applied. And so this rule sort of fits into a declining curve. And so the targets were kind of part of a bigger look at, sort of recognition also of some of the other things that were kicking in. So, and I think our report, gets a bit into those details, but as a general response, I think as we look at, some of these, whether it's the existing warehouse approach or even other opportunities, I mean, our rule, clearly, as you heard during the presentation, is much broader than South Coast rule, much more stringent in many ways. So I think there was some recognition of that during the commenting. There's other aspects of this, what you bring up, but also other issues that may come up as we keep evaluating enhancements. So I think we can bring all that up to speed when we have those discussions around where we want to see the future of the program as we take advantage, hopefully, of some additional tools that we may have at our disposal.
Thank you.
Thank you much. Okay. We have a motion on the floor from
Second.
Supervisor Pereira and Mendez, second. Go ahead and call the roll.
Mr. Chiesa,
Aye.
Mr. Couch. Might have stepped out.
Sorry,
Ms.
yes.
Fugazi. Oh, thank you. Ms. Fugazi. She stepped out as well. Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Mendez,
Yes.
Dr. Pacheco Warner. Dr. Pacheco Warner, she might have stepped out. Mr. Pereira,
Aye.
Mr. Preciado,
Yes.
Mr. Rickman,
Yes.
Dr. Sheriff,
Yes.
Ms. Sheklin,
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you very much. On to item 13, approve amended emission reduction agreement with Kern County to offset emissions from county permitted oil and gas activities.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I'm Morgan Lambert, one of the deputies here at the Air District, to present this item today. So just by way of a little bit of a primer, as you're aware, we have a concept that we use and a tool we use here at the district at times called voluntary emission reduction agreements, and this agreement with the county kind of falls into that framework. And what VERAs are an innovative CEQA mitigation measure that have been utilized for 15 or so years now to reduce air quality impacts from development projects. They provide an enforceable mechanism for lead agencies to mitigate project emissions through their environmental review processes under CEQA. And under VERA, the project proponents generally provide funds to the district, which then uses those funds through our grant programs to implement emission reduction projects. These are all surplus of our existing rules and regulations. That's one of the caveats of the emission reduction agreement. And we generally prioritize the reductions near the locations as much as feasible. And another really important caveat to remember is that your board's approval of a VERA is really to ensure mitigation of air quality impacts. It's in no way to signify approval or endorsement of the underlying development project by the district. That discretion for whether or not the project is going to get approved lies with the lead agency, in this case, Kern County. So just to step back a little bit on the history of this one, back in 2015, Kern County revised their oil and gas zoning ordinance and kind of went to what's a county-wide programmatic requirement for how they reviewed and permit wells under the CEQA process rather than a project-by-project basis, which they had done previously. As the lead agency under CEQA, the county prepared and certified an environmental impact report for that new ordinance back in the 2015 timeline. And the EIR contained a set of air quality mitigation measures designed to mitigate air quality impacts. And one of those measures required that the county enter into an emission reduction agreement with the district. In August of 2016, your board approved the execution of the Kern County Oil and Gas Emission Reduction Agreement. And this agreement provided a mechanism to mitigate NOx, ROG, and PM10 emissions from the drilling of new oil wells in Kern County. As your board is aware, PM 2.5 is a subset of PM10, and following that, the district has always interpreted the agreement to also provide for mitigation of PM 2.5 emission reductions. And following that model, most of the projects that, 90+% of the projects that we have funded using this fund have been targeting emission reductions from combustion equipment, wherein the particular matter is in fact PM 2.5 reductions. Following from the initial approval of this by Kern County, they were litigated on this process, this ordinance and the EIR that went along with it. And Kern County has since issued a supplemental EIR with an amended mitigation measure, which makes explicit the requirement for offsetting of project PM 2.5 emissions under the emission reduction agreement. Consistent with the court ruling, the emission reduction agreement must now also be amended to explicitly reference PM 2.5 to ensure the amended mitigation measure is in conformance with the court ruling and is an enforceable measure under the supplemental EIR. So at the request of Kern County, the district staff recommends amending the existing agreement today, again, to conform with the court's ruling. So in addition to the PM 2.5 language that is in the amended agreement, the district staff is also recommending additional minor clarifying amendments and corrections to the agreement, which we have discussed with Kern County. And these are mainly administrative and logistical in terms of how we establish the cost effectiveness number, and as well as some timing of some of the payments and funds received. The Kern County Board of Supervisors will consider this amendment at their August 23rd meeting, if approved here today by your board. So with that, we recommend that the board approve and authorize the chair to sign the attached first amended oil and gas emission reduction agreement with the Kern County Board of Supervisors. Mr. Chair, would open to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Morgan. Any questions? I guess I would ask Supervisor Couch if he has any insight or issue with it.
I have no issue with it. I want to thank Samir and all the staff at the district and at the county for their work. And I believe we have joining us by Zoom our Planning and Natural Resources Director, Lorelei Obiot. If any board members have any, get down into the weeds with a technical question that the district staff might need her assistance. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Any questions? Seeing none, then we're going to go. Are there any public comments, Fresno?
I do not see any public comment in Fresno.
Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Modesto?
No public comments in Modesto.
Online?
No public comment online.
All right, thank you. I'll bring it back to. Who was that? Was that?
Wheeler, move to
that was
approve.
Wheeler. Wheeler and Couch.
Yes, sir.
All right, call the roll.
Mr. Chiesa?
Aye.
Mr. Couch?
Yes.
Ms. Fugazi? She still stepped up. Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Mendez?
Yes.
Dr. Pacheco Warner has left the meeting. Mr. Pereira?
Aye.
Mr. Preciado?
Aye.
Mr. Rickman?
Yes.
Dr. Sheriff?
Yes.
Ms. Shucklin?
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. And we'll move on to item 14, verbal report on the California Air Resources Board activities.
Mr. Chair, board members, Dr. Pacheco Warner has left the meeting. I just wanted to note that there is a detailed informational item on this in the packet. One item in there that I think is just significant, that is an ongoing process. Just wanted to make sure the board was aware, is the draft 2022 climate change scoping plan is a major ongoing effort by the California Air Resources Board that Dr. Pacheco Warner has been obviously very active in. There's been a couple of hearings on this. There was one hearing recently here in the San Joaquin Valley, and just wanted to make sure that was on your radar and that you were tracking that process. And I'm sure Dr. Pacheco Warner would be happy to answer any further questions if you had any beyond that very brief report on her behalf.
Okay, any questions, Samir, on that? Okay, gonna move on to item 15. I don't have my glasses on, I keep forgetting. Executive Director report.
I do have a few quick updates for you, Mr. Chair, and board members and the public. I did want to congratulate Dr. Pacheco Warner on, she was unanimously reappointed by the Senate, confirmed back on our board here as our district board member just recently, just earlier this week. So I wanted to congratulate her on that and make that announcement along with what was mentioned earlier. She's the proud mother of a new baby as well. Just make sure the board is aware of that. Wanted to mention that the annual report, our 30th anniversary edition report, is available. It's up on our webpage, has been up on our webpage, but we do have some printed versions as well that we are happy to distribute as you have community engagement or other opportunities for sharing the report. It's a great resource, very colorful, a lot of great information in here. Just want to make that offer and let me know if you have any needs for that. Want to also thank Chair Chiesa and Dr. Pacheco Warner for the op-ed that was mentioned earlier. That was a very well received op-ed highlighting the importance of the ongoing work that is happening here at the Valley Air District in partnership with CARB and working with EPA to keep looking for ways to address those sources of emissions. And so really want to make sure that was also on everybody's radar, and a lot of appreciation for them continuing to advocate on behalf of the San Joaquin Valley and all the hard work that's going on here. And lastly, wanted to also make sure, this was in our board packet here today as far as our schedule for upcoming meetings, but just to highlight on one of the upcoming meetings, which is our governing board study session, which is scheduled for November 9th and 10th. That's going to be held at Wonder Valley, there east of Sanger. And just want to make sure that's on everybody's radar, invite everybody to participate in this meeting, and usually a great opportunity for a lot of strategic items of interest to the Valley, great agenda that will be a good opportunity for just a little bit more of a casual environment to talk about a lot of important issues. We plan on bringing the agenda for the study session back to the board for discussion at our September board meeting, so next meeting, to talk some more about the agenda for that meeting. And then lastly, one more note. I almost forgot my last note here. As was mentioned, I think once or twice earlier during the board meeting, the president did sign the Inflation Reduction Act, which does include a lot of funding, a lot of climate funding, air quality funding. We'll be reporting out to the board and the public on various opportunities as that is unpacked here in the coming weeks. I do anticipate bringing an update to the board in September. There's about $370 billion worth of climate and clean energy investment in this bill. Just a couple of very high-level highlights. There's $80 billion at EPA for a variety of emission reduction programs, including for heavy-duty trucks, vehicles, and infrastructure, staffing at the federal level to deal with some backlog issues across the country, $30 billion to USDA for sustainable agricultural activities. So that's a lot of different programs aimed at supporting agriculture and moving forward with a number of initiatives there, and funding for forest management activities, and then $100 billion plus for various clean energy and infrastructure, advanced vehicle manufacturing, clean building, and other project categories. So this is it's a very extensive and a very wide range of funds that are going to be available, that we'll be working with our partners locally, at the state level, with our Valley delegation. A lot of outreach, a lot of prioritization, hopefully, to the state and to the Valley, so that we can take advantage of those programs and continue helping move forward our mission here. And with that, Mr. Chair and board members, happy to answer any questions.
Any board comments, questions? You're off the hook, Samir. All right, moving on to item 16, governing board member comments. It's the screen is very blank. There we go. Supervisor Mendez.
Well, this is kind of, I think we're the board of members can talk about stuff they've done here recently. And last week, I actually got a chance to talk to the AG 2 times in 1 week. And except for the pleasantries, I've just want to inform the board that I was shocked, not really shocked, but it was very sad that somebody in his position can be that uninformed about stuff his staff is doing. And I think this is a real problem in this state. And I think people in government, no matter what they're doing, need to stay in their lane. And if, you know, I always like that stay in your lane, you know, deal. And I think I use an example of how bad he's out of his lane. It was on 2 issues in Fresno County. He's so far out of his lane that he would be arrested by the CHP for reckless driving. I mean, it's just sad. And I've one of the letters that he sent to the city of Fresno and the county on Measure C, even I forwarded the letter to CSAC just to see, hey, you know, what do you think of this? And they were like dumbfounded. There's no legal basis in anything he said, and it's not even a legal letter. It's a political letter. And I think we've got a big problem in this country. And I know Manuel talked about a bill that Assemblyman Arambula is forward. And it's really, I call it, that's predatory legislation. And this is a predatory practice of somebody using their statewide office to do something they're not supposed to. So that's what I got to say.
Thank you very much. Mayor Preciado.
Yes, my closing comments will be, I really do want to thank all the community members and business and everybody who is concerned. We really appreciate their comments. We take it very seriously. And myself have brought some issues regarding also equity. And sometimes it is hard for the agency to do equity when it comes to first come, first serve. It is very difficult for equity to reach out to the most needed people. Either will be farmers, business people, truck drivers, or the small rural communities. When it comes to equity, it is hard to reach 100% equity, but I do believe that the board is working in transparency and trying to work together with everybody who is involved in the process of making the Central Valley a better place to live and breathe, and keep working regarding reducing pollution. And I personally represent a small rural community that has many issues, but I have brought him sometimes on a one-on-one with Samir. I really appreciate his willingness, and I know he's also reaching out to everyone, and his office is open for one-on-one meetings, or trying to reach out to a more concise and way to resolve issues, at least get the right information when it's needed it, and also see what other options there may be out there to continue with the great work that the Air Quality Control Board is doing. I want to thank also staff, the Audit, everything that they do. I believe they do it with 100% heart and a willingness to do the work well done. And this is something that I will here to represent community, represent the public, represent businesses and everybody who's got concern and comments. I would like to thank them all to bringing those concerns to our attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments, Mayor Preciado. Dr. Sheriff?
Thank you. And I just wanted to observe, we're all extremely tired of COVID, but COVID is not tired of us by any stretch of the imagination. You know, the technology of masks, it's amazing. They're just as uncomfortable today as they were in March of 2020. None of us like wearing them. But, you know, my thanks to the staff in terms of their attention to distancing and masking and taking care of the public, making the public feel like they're taken care of. It's never wrong to wear a mask, though it's never fun. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Lewis.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a shout out to one of the staff members, Jamie Holt, who I've been working with to make rounds in Merced County at our various cities, promoting the grants and rebates that are available to the community. On August the 2nd, we had, excuse me, a session with Gustine City Council. And this coming August the 22nd, we have Atwater. So the last city within the county that we haven't received an outreach from is the city of Dos Palos. So hopefully we can get them on board. And Jamie, the upcoming year, I'd like to begin to work with you on some of the school districts so that they can become educated on what's available to them as far as grants with school buses are concerned. And we'll just keep going until we hit everybody in Merced County. Thank you.
Very great comments. Thank you very much, Deborah. And I think I'm going to take you up on the same thing, Jamie. And then I do want to remind everyone, I know I had Samir come and present to the Board of Supervisors. It was very well received. So I would encourage everyone, take some of his time if you have an opportunity or some open time, either within a city or at the board level, to do that, to get the message out of all the good work that's being done. All right, I see no one else. So if there's nothing else for the good of the order, I'm going to hit the gavel. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.